Chapter 8:10, Zhang Xian's poison, he drank it all, just like that? Cheers. Does he think that that is wine? To drink lethal poison so nonchalantly, he sure is cool. Indeed. He might be a freshman, but with this, he has my complete respect. Seeing Zhang Xian gulping down the poison without any hesitation, a huge commotion broke out among the crowd. Previously, when he had first uncorked the lid, everyone could feel the overwhelming aura of the lethal poison contained inside. Putting aside physicians, even poison masters would not dare to swallow such a poison. Yet, the young man before them had gulped it down casually as if he was drinking wine, even smacking his lips when he was done. Just his courage in itself was truly admirable. Even the seniors who had their reservations about him couldn't help but feel a surge of respect for him. There was probably not a second person in the Master Teacher Academy who would willingly drink lethal poison as readily as him. Not expecting the other party to drink his poison so quickly, leaving him no time to react at all, Yu Su's mouth twitched uncontrollably. What do you mean by cheers, and that it's my turn? The hell? With such a huge gourd, there is at least 4 to 5 gene one of urine inside. On top of that, the astringent odor. How am I to drink this? I have already drunk your lethal poison, but you still aren't going to drink mine? Fine by me as well. You are the one who set the rules, and you have failed to follow them. Since that's the case, I will report it to the Physician Guild this instant to have your physician license revoked. Zhang Xian waved his hands. Yu Su's complexion turned extremely awful, and he felt as if he was going to explode at any moment. He had heard of how troublesome this fellow was, but he had never thought much of it. To think that it would actually be true. To leave the Tower of Physicians in such a state and force him into accepting his duel, and now, the other party was even making him drink Saint Beast urine. Refuse, and he would lose the duel, subjecting him to the whims of the other party. Drink, and the reputation he had built up painstakingly over the course of his life would go down the drain. There was no way out for him. Neither option was one he could accept. He had thought that he was ingenious to have thought of proposing a duel of poison curing, but who knew that it would turn out to be the stinkiest decision he had ever made. Forget it. Even though the spirit solution of vigor is urine, it's still a type of medicinal ingredient. But ultimately, could one's life possibly be more important than one's reputation? Fine, I'll drink it then. Gritting his teeth in determination, Yu Su pinched his nose and took the gourd. Tilting his head upwards, he gulped it down. The predecessors of the Physician Guild had also needed to consume all kinds of Saint Beast urines back then in order to formulate prescriptions to treat specific illnesses. Thinking about it from that perspective, drinking the spirit solution of vigor didn't seem to be much of a deal anymore. Gudong, gudong. The odor from the spirit solution of vigor was so overpowering that Yu Su's lips began twitching wildly, and tears streamed down his cheeks. Elder Mo's gourd was extremely large, storing around 4 to 5 gene of the spirit solution. Despite the speed at which Yu Su was gulping it down, it still took him 3 minutes before he was able to ingest all of it. The urine of Saint Beasts was far harsher to the nose than a human's. Putting aside whether there was any poison in the spirit solution of vigor in the first place, just the smell itself already left Yu Su extremely nauseated, and he felt as if he would vomit at any moment. I'm done. After exhaling a mouthful of foul-smelling breath, Yu Su glared at Zhang Xian savagely with a reddened face. Just as Yu Su was going to see if his poison had started to act on Zhang Xian yet, he suddenly saw the latter gazing at him in admiration, even giving a thumbs up toward him. You drank it all. Impressive. When I said feel free, I meant that you don't have to finish drinking the entire gourd. Actually, my poison only requires you to drink a mouthful. I truly didn't expect Vice School head you to have such a unique taste, gulping down an entire gourd of it. I am truly in awe of you. The purpose of the spirit solution of vigor was just to conceal the unique presence of his Heaven's Path Shinchi. Yu Su just had to drink a single mouthful for the Heaven's Path Shinchi infused in it to seep into his body. Who could have known that the other party would be so drastic, finishing such a large gourd to the last drop. He sure was impressive. Yu Su's body swayed weakly, and a mouthful of orange-yellowish liquid spewed from his mouth. A repugnant odor could be smelled from his breath. A mouthful is sufficient. Screw you. You are toying with me, aren't you? I will remember this. Let's see if you can laugh until the very end. If you can't neutralize the poison within the next hour, you will have lost the duel. Knowing that it was impossible for him to win a verbal fight against Zhang Xian, Yu Su gritted his teeth and harumphed coldly. Neutralize the poison within the next hour? There's no need to be that troublesome. I have already neutralized the poison. Zhang Xian looked at Yu Su with a wry smile on his face. The latter's poison was indeed formidable. If it had been in the past, even with Zhang Xian's Heaven's Path Xinqi, it would still have taken quite a bit of effort for him to neutralize it. However, the previous transfusion of soul essence with Wei Ruyan had resulted in a change of his constitution, granting his body with properties reminiscent of the innate poison body. To the current Zhang Xian, drinking Yu Su's poison was not much different from drinking any beverage. Its lethality was completely ineffective on him. On the contrary, the spirit from the medicinal herbs used to concoct the poison further reinforced his cultivation and his soul. His soul had grown yet again from its size of 10 meters. Even though he would have to draw out his soul in order to ascertain how much the growth was, it was a fact that his soul energy had grown significantly more condensed. In other words, not only was the poison not harmful to him, it even boosted his cultivation. You have already neutralized the poison. Yu Su staggered, and he nearly fell from the stage. Are you for real? That poison was his greatest trump card. With it, he could even kill opponents who possessed a higher cultivation than him. Yet, the fellow hadn't attempted to consume an antidote or done anything at all. How in the world did he manage to neutralize his poison? That's right. If I'm not mistaken, the core ingredients of your poison are green-leafed heart nexus plant and soulless flower, and you added another 49 medicinal ingredients to complement them. Should an ordinary saint consume just a single drop, their heart and mind would be corroded, resulting in a swift death. Not only so, this poison has the effect of numbing one's nerves as well. When diluted heavily, it can be used to make others obey one's commands. This property of it is extremely potent as well, working on Saint Realm experts too. At which, Zhang Xian chuckled lightly. The poison you concocted is indeed formidable. However, it is nothing before me. It just happens that I do know how to make an antidote to it. 3 qian of green bamboo shoot, 2 liang of silverware grass, 4 qian of white angelica wood. Grind all 23 medicinal ingredients into powder, and that would be the antidote to your poison. There isn't even a need to concoct anything at all. Why you? Every word that Zhang Xian spoke made Yu Su widen his eyes a little more. By the time he was done saying everything, the latter's eyes were already bulging as if he had seen a ghost. Given that Yu Su had the poison in his hands, it was natural that he would have the antidote as well. Regardless of whether it was the poison or the antidote, the other party's analysis was spot on. In other words, the reason Zhang Xian was still fine despite drinking his poison was because he had neutralized it instantaneously. Was that still the feat of a human? Just how could one possibly do that? Why did it feel as if he wasn't consuming poison but just having a meal instead? Am I right? Zhang Xian glanced at Yu Su with a provocative smile. When he received the jade bottle, he had used the Library of Heaven's Path to analyze its content. As a result, he knew the various ingredients of the poison, and from that, he was able to formulate an antidote to it. Saint Realm poison. A piece of cake. Fine, you might be right. However, this isn't your victory yet. I can neutralize your poison, too. Open. Gritting his teeth, Yu Su's Xinqi began surging furiously. Hong long. In the next instant, all of his acupoints abruptly opened, and a fiery aura immediately gushed into the surroundings. In an instant, it felt as if he was a searing cauldron. This is the grand circulation cauldron poison expelling art? Zhong Dingchun exclaimed with narrowed eyes. Hearing the lengthy name of the technique that the other party had stated, School Head Zhao, School Head Imo, and the others turned to him with questioning gazes. This is a technique created by six-star pinnacle physician Qian Buyo 5,000 years ago. This technique allows one to expel the poison within one's body without consuming an antidote. Despite the profound variations of poison in the world, poison is, in essence, a foreign substance that isn't compatible with the human body, invading one's meridians and acupoints. The grand circulation cauldron poison expelling art was designed based on this fundamental interpretation of poison. By using one's body as a cauldron and one's jinqi as a power source, it expels all poisonous substances from one's acupoints in a gaseous form. However, due to the technique's inability to clearly differentiate between poison and other essential parts of the body, the usage of this technique inflicts permanent damage on the foundation of one's body. Nevertheless, it has never failed in dealing with poison before. As long as it isn't the kind of poison that results in instantaneous death, this technique will be able to resolve it. However, this technique went missing a few thousand years ago. How did Su learn it? Zhong Dingchun explained with a deep frown. The grand circulation cauldron poison expelling art was an incredibly effective skill in dealing with poison, but at the same time, it was an extremely difficult skill to master. Furthermore, it was said to have disappeared from the world several thousand years ago. It was bizarre that Su knew of the technique when he, the head of the physician school, didn't know of it. On top of that, the poison which the other party had just taken out was also something he had never heard of before. His doubts only served to deepen after Zhang Xian described the prescription. The core ingredients of the poison, green-leafed heart nexus plant and soulless flower, were medicinal herbs that had gone extinct several centuries ago. It was impossible to find them anywhere now. If that was the case, how did that fellow concoct the poison? On top of that, even though poison masters and physicians shared many similarities in their fields of specialty, the core capabilities they possessed were still different from one another. It would be difficult for a physician to concoct a lethal poison capable of killing a Saint Realm expert unless there was a poison master working with him. But, poison masters had always been the nemesis of physicians. Could that fellow have some secret connection with them? I will have to question him thoroughly on this matter after this matter is over. Zhong Dingchun thought with a grim expression. While Zhong Dingchun was contemplating the issue, School Head Imo, School Head Zhao, and the others came to a realization upon hearing his words. No wonder he challenged Zhang Shi to a duel of poison curing. He has such an ace up his sleeves. Despite the various reasons that Su had come up with to convince Zhang Xian to accept the duel, it was still bizarre that a physician would choose to compete not on patient treating but poison curing. It turned out that he did have the absolute confidence in achieving victory over Zhang Xian on this aspect. A technique that could resolve any poison easily. It was natural that he would choose the format of the duel to be poison curing, especially after hearing about the formidable feats Zhang Xian had performed in the physician school. Hung Long. While they were chatting, a yellowish gas gushed out of Vice School Head Yu's body, reminiscent of steam fleeing from the various apertures of a cauldron. Pungent. This foul smell is really intolerable. Hurry up and seal your 6 senses, or else you will be stunk to death. Sealing the 6 senses don't work at all. That pungent gas seeps right into our acupoints. As more and more yellowish gas was expelled from Vice School Head Yu's body, the crowd beneath frowned in displeasure. The smell of the spirit solution of vigor alone was already overwhelming to any human. Yet, the grand circulation cauldron poison expelling art further refined it before releasing it into the air, worsening the odor many times over. Even Saint Realm experts like Zhao Bingxiu, Wei Ranxue, and the others couldn't stand it, and they hurriedly created a barrier of Jinqi to ward off the odor. Otherwise, they might really just faint from the sheer acridity of the stench. Who? After some time, Su's body finally stopped expelling yellowish gas. His entire face was ghastly pale from frailty, and it looked like he had been choked by the stench as well. However, the excited gleam in his eyes couldn't be concealed. Flinging his sleeves, he declared proudly, "I have neutralized your poison too." While he did take longer than Zhang Xian to neutralize the poison, arguably, he did consume the poison later, and the quantity he consumed was much more as well. As long as he were to grasp onto these points firmly, he should be able to force the duel into a draw. "You have neutralized my poison." Seeing Yu Su's confident face, Zhang Xian shook his head and gazed at Yu Su in sympathy. "Do you even know what poison you are inflicted with?" Yu Su harumphed coldly. "No matter what kind of poison you used, my grand circulation cauldron poison expelling art is able to resolve it easily." However, before he could finish his words, he suddenly felt an intense pain assaulting his chest. Pfft! A mouthful of blood spurted from his mouth, and his body began shaking uncontrollably. At the same time, his face swiftly turned black. Yu Su widened his eyes as his body stiffened in shock. "I haven't neutralized your poison yet." Chapter 8:11. Busybody. As a 6-star pinnacle physician, Yu Su's understanding of the human body had reached a profound level. He could easily tell whether he had been poisoned or not. In just that brief moment, he instantaneously realized that the lethal poison had already reached his vitals. At such a point, there was nothing he could do to salvage the situation anymore. Unknowingly, his fate had already been sealed. Didn't the grand circulation cauldron poison expelling art dispel the poison from his body? Just what was going on? "That is right, you didn't neutralize my poison at all." "I didn't neutralize it." "How is that possible?" Unable to believe it, Yu Su anxiously drove his jinqi in an attempt to suppress the poison within his body, but his actions were completely futile. Flustered, he pointed a finger at Zhang Xian and yelled furiously, "Could it be that your poison was not in the spirit solution of vitality?" That's cheating." He had already expelled every last drop of the Saint Beast urine, but the poison still remained in his body. Could the Saint Beast urine have been a cover to conceal the true poison? "I cheated." Zhang Xian gazed at Yu Su disdainfully and bellowed authoritatively, "We were sincere and polite when we pleaded with you to sell the 10-leafed flower to us, which we needed urgently to save a life. It was one thing for you to reject us, but you exploited Wei Changfeng's desperation to save his daughter and baited him into picking a cloud mist flower from the cloud mist ridge, causing him to suffer a tragic death under the relentless assault of Saint Beasts. And yet, you are accusing me of cheating." Zhang Xian slowly walked forward as he spoke, and he carried an overpowering disposition that made one dare not look him in the eye. "Vice school head, you made them pick a cloud mist flower from the cloud mist ridge. Isn't that no different from sending them to their deaths? Is that the reason behind the conflict between them? I thought that Zhang Shi only challenged Vice School Head Yu in order to make a name for himself. I didn't expect for there to be such a story behind this matter." Hearing the resounding and powerful voice on the stage, a huge commotion broke out amidst the crowd. Most of those gathered here had only known that Zhang Xian had challenged Vice School Head Yu, but they didn't know the story behind it. After hearing his words, they finally understood why Zhang Xian would go to the extent of challenging a vice school head of the academy. Hearing the criticisms below the stage, Yu Su panicked. On top of that, watching as Zhang Xian's seemingly immense figure advanced toward him, he suddenly felt a deep surge of fear, and he subconsciously took a step back. "But nevertheless, as per your request, I managed to procure the cloud mist flower. Yet, when I went to your residence to make the trade with you, you insisted that the cloud mist flower should be alive. Fine, since that's your request, I revived the cloud mist flower as per your wish, but you still refused to make the trade. Was I the one cheating then?" Zhang Xian continued to advance on Yu Su with a sharp glint in his eyes. Yu Su trembled in fear as he took yet another step back. "You said that the 10-leafed flower hadn't matured yet and thus couldn't be sold. Thus, I used my secret art and expended my jinqi to hasten its maturity. But after all was done, you still refused to make the trade, disregarding the honor you have as a master teacher. Was that me cheating as well?" It felt as if Zhang Xian's sharp words were going to penetrate Yusu's soul. His voice echoed loudly from the stage, sounding clearly in everyone's ears. Three consecutive I.s. Yusu's lips parted in an attempt to refute Zhang Xian's claims, but he simply couldn't find other words to say. What the other party had said were facts. There was no way to refute facts. There is actually such a matter. It is one thing for Vice School Yu to refuse to sell the medicinal herb to Zhang Shi, but to make things difficult for him on top of that, resulting in the loss of a life. That's going too far. I used to respect Vice School Head Yu and viewed him as my role model, but to think that he's actually such a person. He has truly soiled the reputation of the physician school this time around. Indignant and shocked exclamations broke out amidst the crowd. Previously, there were many seniors who thought that Zhang Xian was being extremely arrogant and disrespectful to challenge a vice school head despite merely being a freshman. However, after hearing these words, they realized that he was provoked into doing it. Who could have expected a 6-star master teacher to actually be so vicious and dishonorable? If they were in Zhang Shi's shoes, they would have been burning in fury as well. The 10-leafed flower is a medicinal herb that I have cultivated painstakingly. If I wish to sell it, good for you. But if I refuse, who are you to question my judgment? Am I to be labeled a criminal just because I refuse to sell it to you? Seeing that the public opinion was completely against him, Yusu gritted his teeth and forced himself to stand his ground. The 10-leafed flower is yours, so it's your choice to decide whether you want to sell it or not. I can't force you into it. However, it's also my choice whether or not I want to challenge you to a life and death physician duel. What can you do about it? Zhang Xian said coldly. Yusu's body stiffened. Since he couldn't even defeat the other party in a duel of poison curing, there was no way he would stand a chance in anything else. In other words, victory was impossible for him in a life and death physician duel against the other party. Furthermore, even if the other party did not dare kill him with so many people watching, the problem lay in that the other party could challenge him in a life and death physician duel any time he wished. There was no way he could take it if that were to happen. With each life and death physician duel, he would lose a layer of his skin. Come a few more times, and he would be on the verge of death, if not dead by then. Fine, I admit that I am no match for you. I will compensate you however you want me to, is that enough? Yusu spat through gritted teeth. Compensate? At this point, Zhang Xian was already standing right before Yusu. Gazing down on him coldly, he asked, are you able to compensate for Wei Changfeng's life? Yusu took a step back fearfully before frustration finally overwhelmed him, and he bellowed angrily, just what do you want then? Simple. I want you to pay with your life. Zhang Xian uttered coldly. The fellow before him was the cause of Wei Changfeng's death. Thus, there was only one thing he wanted from the other party, his life. Because of you, Wei Changfeng was forced to scale the Cloud Mist Ridge in order to save his daughter, resulting in his eventual death at the hands of a saint beast. As the culprit behind it all, how can I allow you to continue living in this world? You want me to pay with my life? Yusu's face warped in savagery. I am the vice head of the physician school, a 6-star pinnacle master teacher, but you want me to give up my life simply because of an insignificant figure like him? Why should I do that? Why should you do that? Ha 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 ha. Zhang Xian roared with laughter. You want to know why? Let me tell you why then. Simply because I solved 503 problems on the wall of dilemma single-handedly. Simply because I have left 432 new treatment methods on the malady platform. Simply because I have contributed far more effective solutions to the illnesses recorded in the ancestor forest, allowing them to be resolved easily. Simply because I did not make a single mistake in the 5-star and 6-star physician examinations, leaving behind perfect treatment methods for 73 illnesses. I might have destroyed the Tower of Physicians, but my contribution to the Physician Guild is far greater than that. It is in view of this that the headquarters granted me permission to challenge you to a life-and-death physician duel, and yet you still dare to ask me why. I defeated you fair and square as a physician. Why, you ask? Simply because I defeated you in a life-and-death physician duel. As if an almighty deity from the heavens above, Zhang Xian exuded an inviolable aura that allowed no one to question him in the slightest. Yu Su would take a step back fearfully with every single point that Zhang Xian made, but Zhang Xian would push forward with a forceful step each time, cornering him slowly. Eventually, Yu Su suddenly realized that the ground behind him was empty. He had reached the edge of the stage. Indeed, the other party hadn't played any trickery against him. What the other party depended on what his true capability to challenge him to a life-and-death physician duel, and he had won fair and square as well. There was nothing Yu Su could say to refute that. Kill yourself, Zhang Xian said with unquestionable authority. At this point, Yu Su's face was completely pale, and he couldn't speak a word at all. His confidence had been completely shattered. In this instant, he felt as if he was an utter failure, and his very existence was shameful. Rather than to live so pathetically, he would be better off dead. Thus, he raised his hand and pressed it down forcefully on his head. Hold it right there. But just as the palm was going to strike down on Yu Su's head, a deafening bellow suddenly echoed from the sky, and a figure descended to the ground. Along with the bellow, Yu Su's body suddenly jolted, and the lifeless expression vanished from his face. He lifted his head to look at Zhang Xian once more, but this time, his eyes were reddened with fury. You dare to use the impartation of heaven's will on me? I will kill you. Yu Su howled in rage. No matter how slow he was, it was clear that the other party had used the impartation of heaven's will against him. Utilizing the pressure of the heavens, the other party made him lose himself. If not for that bellow snapping him out of his trance in the nick of time, he would already be dead. Hung Long. The overpowering aura of a Saint One Dan pinnacle expert engulfed the entire area, and the stage creaked loudly under the pressure, threatening to shatter at any moment. Gathering destructive might in his palm, Yu Su thrust his fist at Zhang Xian furiously. In face of the other party's offense, Zhang Xian stood proudly with his hands behind his back, viewing the other party's attack with disdain. Enough, Vice School Head Yu. Just as the attack was about to land on Zhang Xian, another bellow sounded, and a massive hand fell in between Zhang Xian and Yu Su, dissipating Yu Su's offense. With the disappearance of the attack, Zhang Xian sighed. The life-and-death physician duel was conducted under the supervision of the headquarters. Had Yu Su dared to land that palm on him, he would have been killed remotely by the headquarters. It was a pity that someone had stopped him. Turning to the intervening figure, Zhang Xian saw a white-bearded old man dressed in a master-teacher robe. He carried an air of dominance about him, hinting at his extraordinary standing. You are Zhang Xian. The old man glanced at Zhang Xian emotionlessly with an overbearing disposition. Looking at how the old man was still putting on airs here after stopping him from killing Yu Su, Zhang Xian frowned in displeasure. I am the head of the apothecary school, Lu Feng. As the old man introduced himself, he stared down at Zhang Xian impassively, exerting immense pressure on him. No matter what, Yu Su is a vice school head of the academy. Even if he has erred, he doesn't deserve to die. How about this, I will have him give the 10-leafed flower to you and compensate you with some spirit stones, and we will call this matter off. Call this matter off? Zhang Xian's face darkened. If not for this old man interfering in this matter, Yu Su would have already died by now. A 10-leafed flower and some spirit stones. Could these things bring Wei Changfeng back to life? Waving his hands grandly, school head Lu Feng said, yes. By challenging a teacher's authority, you have already violated the respect a student ought to show a teacher. If you drop this matter now, the academy will be lenient with you for this matter. Be lenient with me? Zhang Xian's eyes were utterly cold. What if I insist on taking his life? Humph, this is the Master Teacher Academy. Do you think that a student like you will be allowed to act as you please? A freshman should have leaped at the opportunity to resolve the matter peacefully, especially since he was already mediating it. Yet, the other party dared to talk back at him publicly. School head Lu Feng's face immediately turned livid. Besides, Yu Su is not only a physician but a 6-star pinnacle master teacher of the Master Teacher Pavilion as well. How he should be dealt with is a matter for the Master Teacher Pavilion and Master Teacher Academy to discuss. A 4-star master teacher like you has no place in a matter like this. Are you the principal of the academy? Zhang Xian's eyes narrowed. I'm not. Not expecting Zhang Xian to ask such a question, school head Lu Feng was stunned for an instant. However, he swiftly recovered and said, but with the disappearance of the old principal, and considering the fact that the apothecary school is the #1 school in the academy, I can be considered the stand-in principal, and I have the right to determine the major affairs within the academy. Don't worry, my words count here. Not even Yu Su will be able to override my decision. Since you aren't the principal, what are you spouting so much nonsense for? Stop being a busybody and move aside. Upon hearing that the other party wasn't the principal, Zhang Xian's eyebrows shot up, and he flung his sleeves majestically. Otherwise, shall I challenge your apothecary school right here, right now? Chapter 8:12, Seniority. What? Did he just say that school head Lu is a busybody? He's going to challenge the apothecary school. Watching the spectacle on the stage, the crowd below felt as if they were going bonkers. Ever since the disappearance of the old principal, most of the affairs in the academy had been taken care of by school head Lu Feng. He might not be the official principal, but the power he wielded was as good as one. Furthermore, he was also the de facto leader of the 10 great master teachers, and school head Mo and the others usually heeded his words for most affairs, granting him immense influence as well. Yet, a freshman dared to say that he was a busybody and asked him to move aside. That was truly brazen. Why is Zhang Shi so reckless? School head Wei, school head Zhao, and the others nearly fainted after hearing Zhang Xian's words. They were thinking that with school head Lu's intervention, the matter could be resolved swiftly. However, they didn't think that Zhang Shi would take such a forceful stand on this matter. School head Lu was an austere man, and he regarded discipline and order very highly. Insulting him in public was an immense humiliation to him. There was no doubt that he would fly into a rage over this matter. And just as they had expected, school head Lu's face darkened, and a steely glint could be seen in his narrowed eyes. With a voice reminiscent of the ominous rumbling of thunder, he bellowed, "What did you say? Are you deaf? But even if you are deaf, surely your eyes should be able to see, right? It's in my capacity as a 6-star physician that I have challenged Yu Su in a life-and-death physician duel. In this matter, there is no distinction between teacher or student, so we can only be considered peers. So, don't bother using those principles to your convenience to pressure me. Also, we haven't even determined the winner of our duel yet, but you barged in and interfered in our battle willfully, terminating it forcefully. To talk to me about rules, why don't you try to practice what you preach?" Zhang Xian sneered coldly, with a fearless gaze. While it was indeed a taboo for a student to challenge a teacher's authority, Zhang Xian had challenged Yu Su to a life-and-death physician duel as a fellow 6-star physician, so until the moment the duel ended, his position would not be that of a student but a 6-star physician. Even if Lu Feng was a 6-star master teacher, he could only be considered a peer in the course of the duel. And as a fellow peer, what right did Lu Feng have to interfere in a fight between him and Yu Su? You. Lu Feng pointed his finger at Zhang Xian with a livid face before flinging his sleeves backward furiously. Sharp-tongued, aren't you? But regardless of what you say, I won't allow any harm to come to Yu Su today. I will personally report this matter to the Master Teacher Pavilion to have them annul this matter with the Physician Guild. You intend to protect him? Zhang Xian's eyes narrowed menacingly. For a moment, he was a little perplexed by why Lu Feng would go to such an extent to protect Yu Su, but after a moment of contemplation, it suddenly struck him. Back then, when he and Wei Changfeng were attempting to purchase the 10-leafed flower, the master teacher who went to purchase a medicinal herb from Yu Su seemed to have gone as Lu Feng's representative. The price was low, and the exchange was completed swiftly without any trouble. Considering this, the relationship between the both of them must be fairly good. But that was to be expected. As an apothecary and a herbologist in the Master Teacher Academy, the two of them had probably worked together on multiple occasions over the years, and this gradually built camaraderie between them. Otherwise, Lu Feng wouldn't have gone to the extent of offending the Physician Guild to intervene in the life-and-death physician duel. That's right. Lu Feng declared grandly. Vice School Head Yu, let's leave. I would like to see who in the Master Teacher Academy dares to stop me. Yes. Seeing that school head Lu was firmly standing up for him, Yu Su heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly followed behind him. He had already lost the life-and-death physician duel, so if he were to remain here, the only thing awaiting him was misfortune. At the current moment, the best thing he could do was to leave this area as soon as possible. Zhang Xian's eyebrows shot up as he harumphed coldly. Leave? I haven't given him the permission to leave yet, who dares take him away? Glancing coldly at Yu Su, he commanded authoritatively, after disregarding your honor and morals, what rights do you have to remain as a master teacher? Kneel down. Kneel down. Yu Su was stunned to hear Zhang Xian's abrupt words. Just as he was about to sneer in response, he abruptly felt an inexplicable power striking his acupoints, and excruciating pain assaulted him. Put on. Before he could say anything more, his knees caved in and fell to the ground. Having planted his heaven's path Xinqi within Yu Su's body, it took nothing more than a thought for Zhang Xian to subdue the other party. You. Lu Feng's countenance turned hostile. Right after he said that he would bring Yu Su back, Zhang Xian made Yu Su kneel onto the ground. That was a direct slap to his face, a resounding one at that. When did his standing as the head of the apothecary school become so worthless? Zhang Xian, are you sure you want to go against me? Lu Feng glared at Zhang Xian with a disquieting gaze. Go against you? Zhang Xian shook his head. You aren't worthy of that. To tell you the truth, I didn't give a single shit about you before you appeared. Possessing the library of Heaven's path, there was nothing beneath the heavens that could stand against him. A mere head of the apothecary school wasn't even worthy of his notice. If the other party hadn't come here to cause a ruckus, why would he have bothered wasting his effort going against him? You. Hearing those words, Lu Feng nearly rushed forward in a frenzy to tear Zhang Xian apart. Enough, I don't wish to waste any more words on you. Until the life-and-death physician duel ends, no one will be taking him away. Putting aside the fact that you are only a stand-in principal, even if the official principal of the academy was here today, the only thing he would be taking away from here is Yu Su's corpse. Zhang Xian declared authoritatively. With his heaven's path Xinqi planted deep in the other party's body, the difference between Yu Su's life and death hinged on a single thought of his. No matter who it was, they wouldn't be taking Yu Su away from here alive today. You dare! Lu Feng roared furiously, what do I have to fear? With a wry smile, Zhang Xian turned to Yu Su and ordered, he thinks that I don't dare do anything. Why don't you try spurting a mouthful of blood to prove him wrong? The next moment, an inexplicable power suddenly rampaged within the kneeling Yu Su's innards, and unable to hold himself back, Yue, fresh blood gushed from his mouth, dyeing the entire area crimson. You. Lu Feng nearly lost his sanity on the spot. That was a blatant provocation toward him. Why? You still want to try me? Yu Su, continue until he submits. Zhang Xian ordered with his hands behind his back. Pooh! 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 At Zhang Xian's command, Yu Su began spurting blood endlessly. In just a few moments, his face had already turned ghastly pale, and it felt as if he might pass away at any moment. Stop it! Seeing that his old friend would die if he were to continue spewing blood, school head Lu Feng yelled furiously, but he realized that he was completely helpless to stop Zhang Xian. The poison which Zhang Xian had planted into Yu Su in the life-and-death physician duel was simply far too potent. Otherwise, the latter wouldn't have been forced to obey his commands either, kneeling and spewing blood on command. Stop! Zhang Xian waved his hands casually. Only after that word was uttered did Yu Su finally stop throwing up blood. His body fell feebly to the ground, and he gasped frantically for air. For a moment there, he could almost feel death's embrace. Ever since becoming a master teacher 1,000 years ago, he had never suffered such humiliation before. Seeing that Yu Su had finally stopped throwing up blood, Lu Feng immediately rushed forward to feed him a general antidote. Yu Su swallowed the antidote and drove his Jinqi to allow the antidote to permeate through his body. A moment later, however, he shook his head. As a grade 6 pill, the antidote was potent. However, it was completely ineffective against the poison he was plagued with. The poison which the other party had planted in him had already reached even the most hidden corners of his body, where his Jinqi was incapable of reaching. There was no medicine that could save him anymore. Damn it! Lu Feng stood up and turned to Zhang Xian once more. His teeth were gritted so tightly together that it felt as if they would chip off from the sheer pressure between them. Very well, I acknowledge your capability. However, allow me to offer you a warning. You might have won the life-and-death physician duel, but Yu Su is a 6-star pinnacle physician under the protection of the Academy. With your current standing, you have no right to determine his life and death. Hearing those words, Zhang Xian frowned. As rude as the other party's words were, he knew that the other party was right. If Yu Su was an ordinary physician, Zhang Xian would have killed him without any hesitation. He had the right to do so after winning the life-and-death physician duel. The rules must be abided, but at the end of the duel, you are still a student of the Academy. As the stand-in principal of the Academy and the leader of the 10 great master teachers, I believe that I am more than qualified to stop a student. Lu Feng replied with a grand wave of his hands. While he had infringed on the rules by interfering in the life-and-death physician duel previously, as the duel had come to an end, the other party's position had reverted back to that of a student. As the stand-in principal of the Academy, he possessed the authority to stop or even teach a student of the Academy a lesson. There was no one who could refute that. On the other hand, Zhang Xian's complexion turned extremely awful. Lu Feng was right. No matter how he put it, he was still a student of the Academy. There was a natural hierarchy between teacher and student, and there was nothing he could do if the other party was intent on stopping him. As long as he was in the Academy, he had to respect the rules of it. He could use poison to threaten Yu Su, but if Yu Su were to really die, that would be equivalent to a 4-star master teacher killing a 6-star master teacher, in other words, insubordination. Just by this in itself, he would be subjected to an investigation by the Master Teacher Pavilion. That would make things troublesome for him. As expected of a stand-in principal of the Academy, a 6-star pinnacle master teacher, he was indeed a master at playing by the rules. Leave Vice School head Yu here and neutralize the poison he is suffering from. For your victory in the life-and-death physician duel, I will compensate him in your stead. At the same time, I will make an exception and overlook this matter, treating it as if nothing has happened. Otherwise, I believe that you should also know that I have the power to teach a student of the Academy a lesson. Even if you bring up your grievances to the Master Teacher Pavilion, there is no one who will side with you. Lu Feng threatened. You are really determined to make things difficult for me, aren't you? Seeing that Lu Feng was determined to stand in his way, Zhang Xian's gaze turned frosty. There was indeed nothing scarier than a shameless master teacher. As the saying goes, there is nothing to fear from a hoodlum, what is truly fearsome is a cultured hoodlum. Make things difficult for you? Why would you say such words? I am merely teaching a junior a lesson. If you believe that you are above me in seniority, you are more than free to do so as well. Lu Feng roared in laughter. There was an inherent power in seniority. You are a student, I am a teacher. With just my standing, I can easily force you to lower your head to me. Trapped in a deadlock, Zhang Xian racked his brain furiously for a way out, but there was nothing that he could use to turn the tables. Just as he thought that it was the end, he suddenly heard the exclamation of an old man beneath the stage. Elder Zheng, Elder Wang, and Elder Lu, you are here. Wait a moment, don't go up now. With a gust of wind, several figures leaped onto the stage. Following which, a voice with suppressed composure, reminiscent of the calm before a storm, spoke. School head Lu, we are the 3 guest elders that the martial arts school invited recently. May I ask if with our standing, can we be considered your peers? Chapter 8:13, Unfilial Disciple, hurry up and pay respects to your grand teacher. Hearing that voice, Zhang Xian couldn't help but turn around, and what he saw left him in a trance. The 3 elders who had leaped onto the stage were none other than Zheng Yang, Wang Ying, and Lu Yang. Weren't those 3 fellows cultivating in the residence outside the academy? Why were they here? Furthermore, considering the tight security of the Master Teacher Academy, how did they sneak in without getting caught? While Zhang Xian was astonished by the sight before him, Lu Feng also didn't expect the abrupt situation that fell upon him. He pondered for a moment before chuckling softly and replying, I heard about the 3 of you from school head Su. Despite your young age, you are geniuses among geniuses, possessing extraordinary insight into battle techniques and cultivation. The fact that you were able to win school head Su's approval speaks volumes about your capabilities. Since you are the guest elders of the martial arts school, you are naturally elders of our Master Teacher Academy as well. Without a doubt, you are my peers. The standing of guest elders was higher than that of ordinary elders. Even though Lu Feng was a school head, in the strictest sense, he was only considered an elder of the academy as well. In other words, despite the age difference between them, the trio were his peers. It's good to hear that. Zheng Yang nodded in satisfaction. He gestured to the other 2, and the 3 of them turned to Zhang Xian and kneeled to the ground. Student Zheng Yang, Wang Ying, Lu Yang, pays respect to teacher. Ah. The 3 guest elders invited by the martial arts school are actually Zhang Shi's students. If Zhang Shi's students are of the same seniority as school head Lu, doesn't that mean that school head Lu is lower than him in terms of seniority? Just what is going on? Not only were the seniors stupefied by the situation before them, the many teachers, elders, and school heads who had gathered in the area were dumbfounded as well. Many people had heard about the new guest elders recruited by the martial arts school, and there were quite a few who had gone to listen to their lessons as well. The 3 new guest elders might be young, but their understanding of cultivation and battle techniques was truly worthy of respect. As such, there was no one who had any qualms with their position. Nearly all of the student populace thought that the reason the trio could achieve such a deep understanding of battle techniques and cultivation was because they had inherited the heritage of some formidable figure in the Master Teacher continent, but never in their dreams had they expected that their teacher would be Zhang Xian. He was just a freshman, and yet his students had already become elders of the academy. Just what was with this weird turn of events? While the others were shocked by the situation before them, on the stage, Lu Feng was on the verge of losing his mind. It was just a moment ago that he had haughtily said that Zhang Xian was free to teach him a lesson if the latter's seniority was above his, but the next moment, these 3 appeared. Going by seniority, if Zhang Xian was the teacher of the academy's guest elders, wouldn't that mean that Lu Feng would have to call him uncle? The thought of that immediately sent a streak of darkness across his face. An extremely stifling sensation gripped his chest, leaving him short of breath. The hell with this. If he had known that this would happen, he would have never said that the trio were his peers. But spilt water couldn't be taken back. Since he had already declared it publicly, he couldn't possibly refute what he had just said. It took a long time before his soul finally returned to him, and he said, Zhang Xian might be your teacher, but he is also a student of the academy as well. Since you say that my teacher is a student of the academy, may I ask, who has he acknowledged as his teacher? Shen Yang asked. Lu Feng's face stiffened. Given the huge ruckus that Zhang Xian had caused in the academy, as the stand-in principal of the academy, he'd naturally had someone investigate his background. According to what he knew, the other party had gone into a coma during the recruitment period, so he had no teacher at all. Realizing what Zhen Yang was possibly driving at, Lu Feng replied with an awful complexion, he didn't acknowledge anyone as his teacher. Then does my teacher have a student token? Shen Yang asked. Lu Feng hesitated once again. Most students would receive their student tokens straight from their teachers when they acknowledged them. As for those who didn't acknowledge a teacher, they were still allowed to attend open lectures and they would be given the benefit of the doubt to access most facilities in the academy, but the processing of their student token would be a little more troublesome, requiring at least 10 days. Considering that it was only 6 days since the start of the semester, it was natural that Zhang Xian wouldn't have a student token yet. Since my teacher doesn't have a student token and he hasn't acknowledged a teacher in the academy, why do you say that he's a student of your master teacher academy? Do you have any proof that he is? Shen Yang pressed on. There was nothing Lu Feng could say to this. Considering that Zhang Xian didn't have a student token and hadn't acknowledged any teacher in the academy, even though he was recognized as a student in the academy, there were no official records stating so. If that was the case, it wasn't exactly wrong to say that he wasn't a student of the academy. Assuming that Zhang Xian really wasn't a student of the academy but the teacher of guest elders, it would mean that his standing was higher than Lu Feng's. Thus, if Lu Feng dared to hinder his path, that would be a blatant disrespect for his elders, and this was unacceptable for a master teacher. Even though he doesn't have a student token, he has a residence in the academy, and he even created a student faction. Lu Feng argued anxiously. In the few days since he had entered to the academy, that fellow has already caused 2 schools to collapse and created so much trouble everywhere. Yet, you are telling me that he's not a student. Are you seriously trying to argue that? If he wasn't a student, he would have long been kicked out from the academy for all he had done. There was no way the academy would condone such actions from unaffiliated personnel. Enough, Junior Lu Feng. It's due to the token that school head Imo gave me that I was able to obtain a residence in the academy, and the reason I established a student faction is due to the overwhelming support that the freshmen showed me. I don't understand why you are overthinking this matter, Zhang Xian said. I know that it's in consideration of the academy's interests that you want to stop me, and I don't blame you for that. However, it's a fact that Yu Su did lose to me in the life-and-death physician duel, so it's my right to take him away. As a junior, you should know better than to hinder me. Jun Junior. Hearing the other party's nagging tone, as if a senior trying to persuade a junior not to do the wrong thing, school head Lu Feng nearly fainted on the spot. Do you have to rise up to the occasion every single time someone gives you the opportunity to brag? If someone says that you are the principal, are you going to start acting like you own the academy immediately? School head Zhao, school head Imo, and the others began muttering in disbelief. Elder Zheng, Elder Wang, and Elder Lu are actually Zhang Shi's students. It seems like they are direct disciples at that. They had thought that Yu Su would surely escape with his life now that school head Lu was mediating the dispute. But who could have known that 3 guest elders would suddenly appear at this crucial juncture? What shook them the most was how Zhang Xian addressed Lu Feng as his junior. Going by that, wouldn't that mean they were his juniors as well? Knowing that he would only be cornered if he allowed himself to be swept along at the other party's pace, Lu Feng harumphed coldly. Let's just drop the word games here. No matter how you put it, you are only a 4-star master teacher, don't even dream about taking Yu Su away today. In truth, the matter regarding seniority was indeed very troublesome to iron out. If one were to put it like that, everyone would be everyone's senior in one way or another. At that moment, an impassive voice suddenly sounded from above. Enough, school head Lu. For a stand-in principal of the Master Teacher Academy to make such a huge fuss like that, don't you think that's shameful? Everyone lifted their gazes and saw a ravishing figure descending from the sky. Upon seeing the figure above, Zhang Xian's eyes lit up. The person was no other than the beautiful teacher who had captured his heart at first sight, Luo Ruoxin. Luo Shi. Upon seeing her, school head Lu hurriedly clasped his fist and reported, "This matter concerns the dignity of the Master Teacher Academy. If we were to allow an outsider to take away one of our vice school heads, wouldn't others start to question the authority of the Master Teacher Pavilion? How can we explain this to the headquarters if they question us on this matter?" A slight frown appeared on Luo Ruoxin's face as she waved her hands. "That's not a problem for you to worry, Mu Yuan will explain it to the headquarters." This. Yes. Even though school head Lu was dissatisfied with Luo Ruoxin's response, he dared not to talk back to her. Even though the lady before him was young, there was a high chance she was a member from a sage clan, the Luo clan. Even Mu Shi had to treat her with the utmost respect, so naturally, he wouldn't dare challenge her authority. Seeing Lu Feng backing down on this matter, Luo Ruoxin turned her gaze to Zhang Xian and asked, "Could it be that you have comprehended the Eye of Insight?" Zhang Xian didn't expect Luo Ruoxin to ask such a question. He hesitated for a moment before nodding. "I guess you could say so." The other party had probably noticed it when he used it in the life and death physician duel against Yu Su earlier. He has comprehended the Eye of Insight, which only 6-star master teachers can comprehend. I heard that it is extremely difficult to comprehend the Eye of Insight, and there are many of the top-notch geniuses in sage clans who spend their lives trying to understand it, only to eventually die in regret. Yet, Zhang Shi has comprehended it. With talent like his, as long as he doesn't die, he'll at least become an 8-star master teacher. Indeed. So far, there are only 10 people who are recorded to have comprehended the Eye of Insight in the books. 6 of them became 9-star master teachers, 2 of them died a premature death, 1 of them had his cultivation capped after suffering severe wounds, but nevertheless, he still reached 8-star, and the last one went missing after clearing the 7-star master teacher examination. However, rumor has it that the missing 7-star master teacher was seen exerting might comparable to a 9-star master teacher in a fight against the otherworldly demons before passing away. All of these point at one thing: those who have comprehended the Eye of Insight will at least achieve strength equivalent to an 8-star master teacher if they are given time and space to grow. Fearsome. Hearing Zhang Xian's admittance, a huge uproar broke out amid the crowd. Even though the Eye of Insight was said to be an ability that 6-star master teachers could awaken, only a small handful of true geniuses had managed to comprehend it. Yet, Zhang Xian had actually managed to comprehend it. It was no wonder he possessed exceptional capabilities in smithing, terpsichorean arts, and the way of medicine. His talent was rare even among the offspring of sage clans. Eye of Insight. At the same time, upon hearing of the news, Lu Feng's body trembled uncontrollably in fear. Even the students beneath the stage knew of the significance of the Eye of Insight, so how could he possibly be unaware of it? It was definitely no joke to say that the other party's potential was boundless. To offend such a talent for Yu Su, was it really worth it? It was no wonder Luo Shi chose to side with him instead. Possessing such talent, the other party would surely grow to become one of the powerhouses of the Master Teacher continent one day. Even those of the Sage clan would be inclined to build a good relationship with him, not daring to offend him in the least. As I expected. Luo Ruoxin nodded for a moment before abruptly leaping off the stage. For an instant, it felt as if she had come here to stop Lu Feng just so that she could ask this question, but the next moment, her soft voice sounded in his ear. "I will come and find you tonight." Leaving behind those words, she stepped into the crowd, and after a few turns, she abruptly disappeared from sight. "Find me?" Zhang Xian frowned. Possessing the Library of Heaven's Path, he could easily see through anyone. But for some reason, he was unable to see through Luo Ruoxin. Forget it. Knowing that it was impossible for him to fathom the other party's thoughts, and that he would get the answer tonight, Zhang Xian decided to put the matter aside for the time being. With Luo Ruoxin speaking up on his behalf, Lu Feng didn't dare stop him any longer. After instructing Zheng Yang to carry the poisoned Yusu, he stepped off the stage with his students. With everything that had happened, there was no one who dared to block his path. In an instant, the seniors immediately opened up a way for him to pass. As Zhang Xian walked, he couldn't help but shake his head in disappointment. Given how huge a trouble he had caused this time, it would probably be difficult for him to enter the Master Teacher Academy anymore. Of the 10 schools, he had only challenged the Blacksmith School, Terpsichore School, and Physician School so far. There were still 7 more to go, and it felt like a huge loss for him to leave just like that. Looks like I will have to assume the role of a challenger if I wish to return to the academy. After Zhang Xian had denied being a student of the academy, there was no way school head Lu would acknowledge him anymore. Those who weren't students of the academy possessed no academic credits or student tokens, so they weren't able to enter the academy freely, and they weren't allowed to use its facilities or take the examinations here either. If Zhang Xian still wished to raise the rank of his supporting occupations to 6-star in Hongyuan City, there was only one way: challenging the schools. For example, if Zhang Xian intended to obtain the 6-star apothecary emblem, he could challenge the entire school, and if no one could match up to him, he would naturally be qualified to apply for a 6-star apothecary emblem. Why is it just so difficult for me to live a quiet and humble life? Zhang Xian sighed deeply. He could already foresee the huge chaos he would bring to the Master Teacher Academy should he challenge the schools. Honestly speaking, all he wanted to do was to be an ordinary student, study in a peaceful environment, and pass his exams with flying colors. Yet, trouble simply had to come knocking on his door. But since what had happened, he decided to return to his residence and rest for a few days first. If no better solution came to mind by then, he would just have to resort to challenging the schools. Once he obtained 6 6-star supporting occupations, he would be able to take the 6-star Master Teacher examination. With such thoughts in mind, Zhang Xian walked toward the entrance of the academy. However, on his way there, he suddenly saw a young man wielding a spear run up to him excitedly and block his way. I have finally reached the 10th Dan of the Fallen Spear Art, achieving the level of Spearman Union. Zhang Xian, I want to challenge you to a duel. Will you accept the challenge? The young man flicked his spear, and a resounding roar reminiscent of the roar of a dragon echoed. In that instant, his figure resembled an undefeatable god of war. That person was none other than Shuizhenyang. After listening to Zheng Yang's lecture the day before, he had gone into seclusion, and just a few moments ago, he had finally succeeded in breaking through his bottleneck. After asking around and learning that Zhang Xian was here, he immediately made his way over. With his newfound strength, he would cleanse the humiliation he had suffered and reforge the true Helios faction's reputation. Pa! But before he could even listen to Zhang Xian's reply, he suddenly felt someone striking the back of his head forcefully. He quickly turned around, only to see Zheng Yang Laoshe glaring at him with a displeased gaze. Unfilial disciple, hurry up and pay respects to your grand teacher. Chapter 8:14. So he was the one who bought the manor. Shuizhenyang fell into a daze. The excited gleam in his eyes slowly transformed into a look of horror. Pointing a finger at Zhang Xian, his gaze alternated between Zhang Xian and Zheng Yang, and despair gradually painted his face dark. Unwilling to believe what was happening, he asked doubtfully, "Gigi Grand Teacher?" When he departed from the true Helios faction, Zheng Yang and the others hadn't gotten on the stage yet. As such, he was still unaware of the background of his spearmanship teacher. However, at this instant, hearing from his teacher's own mouth that his grand teacher was Zhang Xian, he suffered a blow so heavy that it threatened to snap his sanity. When the subordinate he'd sent ended up being taken in by Zhang Xian instead, the true Helios faction suffered a heavy blow to its reputation. In order to exact vengeance, he'd left the academy with a spear in his hands, intending to tour the lands so that he could comprehend the 10th dan of the fallen spear art. Through surpassing Zhang Xian in spearmanship, he would bring glory back to the true Helios faction, sending out the message that he, Shui Zhenyang, was still an irreplaceable genius of the Master Teacher Academy. After all the effort he had put into it, when his diligence had finally paid off and he had achieved a breakthrough, reality suddenly struck him. Unknowingly, he had become the grand student of his nemesis. The hell? I don't want to be that fellow's grand student. I want to surpass him and cleanse the shame I have suffered due to him. I want to remain the revered genius of the Master Teacher Academy. Shui Zhenyang howled furiously on the inside. However, before he could sort out his thoughts, excruciating pain assaulted the back of his head once more. His teacher had struck him again. Who do you think you are pointing your finger at? Where are your manners? This is the person I have been telling you about, my teacher. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and get on your knees. Zheng Yang urged with a displeased frown. He had been wanting to introduce his talented student to his teacher for a while now, but now that the chance finally came, the latter was acting completely disrespectful to his teacher. This was truly. If he had known earlier, he should have taught Shui Zhenyang some etiquette beforehand. Get on my knees. On the other hand, Shui Zhenyang felt as if someone had just torn his world apart. All along, due to Zheng Yang and the other's age and astounding capability, he had thought that his grand teacher would be a formidable figure and thus imaged him as an old man in his 70s or 80s. Yet, it turned out to be the nemesis he had set out to defeat in the first place. Why did fate had to pull such a prank on him? Before his departure, he had declared proudly that he would defeat Zhang Xian upon his return. But how could he do so, given his current identity? While Shui Zhenyang was suffering a tragic mental breakdown, Long Sangyue and the others, who were watching the commotion, felt their bodies swaying weakly. Of their 4 student factions, 2 had challenged Zhang Xian, but one became his apprentice and the other his grand student. Their standing was gradually becoming one lower than the other. Say, if we challenge him as well, will we end up becoming his grand students? Long Sangyue gulped. You must be joking. Grand student, that means that his standing is 3 generations higher than us. But we are the direct disciples of the old principal. If he's 3 generations higher than us, wouldn't that make even the old principal his grand student? Dong Xian harumphed coldly. Don't put yourself down and inflate his ego. But, there is just something uncanny about that fellow, Long Sangyue said. There's indeed something weird about him, but, don't you think that's what makes this a challenge? Unlike Long Sangyue's nervousness, Dong Xian's eyes were glowing in excitement. As a genius, she had never submitted to anyone before. Formidable as Zhang Xian might seem, his capability had only served to further stimulate her fighting will. A challenge? Forget it. I fear that my Ashen Moon faction will disappear after the challenge. If you wish to do so, do it yourself. Long Sangyue hurriedly shook his head. You must be joking. Which of the 4 student factions are weak? 2 had already had their turn, and they ended up in such a miserable state. Even a vice school head was utterly crushed by the other party. He had no desire whatsoever to get himself involved in this matter. Forget it. If you are really that scared, I'll do it alone then. Don't worry, I'll surely be able to find his weakness and defeat him. Dong Xian chuckled as her eyes twinkled in confidence. There was no such thing as a flawless cultivator in the world. So what if Zhang Xian was formidable? She didn't believe that he could be perfect. As long as she paid careful attention, she would surely be able to find something to exploit against him. By then, her Dong Xian faction would become the Academy's largest faction, unmatched by any other. And finally, after so many years of competing with Hu Yaoyao, she would emerge at the top. You accepted Shui Zhenyang as your disciple. On the other hand, Zhang Xian was gazing at the kneeling Shui Zhenyang before him in a daze. When did Zheng Yang take this fellow as his disciple? Not to mention, what was with the matter of being the guest elder? Fearing that Zhang Xian would get furious, Sun Chang hurried forward and interjected. Young master, I was the one who convinced young master Zheng Yang to do so. I saw that this fellow was sincere and determined in acknowledging young master Zheng Yang as his teacher, and he also paid the school fee as well, so I took pity on him. Discreetly, he passed a storage ring over and sent a telepathic message. Here are the spirit stones that Zheng Yang and the others have earned through their lectures. Lecture. The more Zhang Xian listened, the more bewildered he became. He immersed his consciousness into his storage ring, and what he saw made him have the shock of his life. Middle-tier spirit stones stacked as if a mountain. Judging from the size of the pile, there were at least several 10,000 of them in there. Even if he were to exchange them for high-tier spirit stones, he would at least be able to get 100 of them. Are you sure you earned this sum by conducting a lecture, not by robbery? Indeed. It's actually like this. Sun Chang swiftly explained the matter of how Zheng Yang and the others became guest elders of the martial arts school to Zhang Xian. To think that such a thing could happen. Zhang Xian was astonished by what had happened while he was at the Cloud Mist Ridge. Even though what he had imparted to Zheng Yang and the others were just simplified versions of the Heaven's Path Divine Art and Heaven's Path Battle techniques, those were already the most profound secret manuals in this world, far surpassing any of their kind. As master teachers, it was natural that Shui Zhenyang and Su Changqing would realize how profound they were. With that, it didn't come as much of a surprise that they would invite Zheng Yang and the others to become guest elders of the academy. Sun Chang couldn't help but feel a little unnerved by Zhang Xian's silence. Young master, I'm the one who convinced Zheng Yang and the others into it. If you wish to punish them, please punish me instead. He felt that the young master would be moved by the spirit stones, but nevertheless, there was no way he could be certain that he had made the right call. Punish? Why would I punish you for this matter? Accepting disciples and imparting knowledge to them, this is a way for them to reinforce their understanding as well. Zhang Xian waved his hands casually. Often, just by listening to a lecture, one's understanding of a subject wouldn't be complete. However, if one were to attempt to teach it to another, one would be forced to organize their thoughts and sort out the logic regarding it, and this would reinforce one's understanding of the subject. As such, it was crucial for students to exchange their knowledge with one another or even serve as the other's teacher. This was not only beneficial to the other party but oneself as well. Through the lecture, Zheng Yang and the others should have been able to gain deeper insight into cultivation and battle techniques themselves, and that was surely a good thing. Besides, it wasn't like he had made a loss because of this matter. With the spirit stones earned, he would have nothing to worry about for the time being. He was still thinking about selling a portion of the earth vein spirit essence to tide them over for the time being, but it seemed like there was no need for it anymore. These students of his had truly done something good for him this time around. Nevertheless, there was still one thing he had to warn them about. I don't oppose to you becoming the teachers of others. On the contrary, I think it's good for you to impart knowledge to others. However, I will still have to ask you to do it in moderation. Our heritage is grand and profound, so it might bring us trouble instead if you impart too much to others. Living in this world, it's always best to keep a low profile whenever possible. This is a trait that you should learn from me. Zhang Xian warned grimly. The Heaven's Path Divine Art and Heaven's Path Battle techniques, even if just the simplified versions, were too powerful, it would definitely cause a huge uproar if their existence were to be made known to others. Perhaps, it might even end up drawing in enemies far too powerful for them to deal with. Thus, it would still be best for them to keep a low profile. Teacher, rest assured. We only lectured them on the bare basics. Regarding those crucial aspects of our heritage, we made sure to left them out. We have tried our best to keep a low profile as well. Zheng Yang and the others replied. Good. Zhang Xian nodded in satisfaction. The few of them didn't speak too loudly, so not many had heard their words. However, Shui Zhenyang, who was just kneeling before them, heard them loud and clear. His body shook frenziedly, and tears threatened to spill from his eyes. The heck, can we still hold a proper conversation over here? A 20-year-old freshman creating a huge storm as soon as he entered the academy, sending all of the seniors into a frenzy. 3 youngsters, only 15 or 16, becoming the guest elders of the martial arts school. How the freaking hell can you call this low profile? If this is called low profile, what can be considered high profile? Alright. Since you have accepted him as your disciple, teach him well. Also, try to conduct a few more lectures in the academy to earn more spirit stones. As you know, we cultivators require a lot of spirit stones to cultivate, so it will be best for us to get as many of those as we can, Zhang Xian instructed. Sun Chang nodded. Don't worry, young master. I will make arrangements. As he had expected. As long as it came to money, the young master would have no qualms with it. For the time being, we should head over to Yu Su's residence to get the 10-leafed flower. Zhang Xian said. For the moment, the urgent matter at hand was for him to take the 10-leafed flower and save Wei Ruyan. Other matters could wait, but hers couldn't. If he didn't hurry, the latter might just end up succumbing to her illness. Given that Yu Su's life was in Zhang Xian's hands and he had lost in the life-and-death physician duel as well, he had no choice but to obey Zhang Xian's orders. Thus, it didn't take long for the 10-leafed flower to appear in Zhang Xian's hands. After obtaining the medicinal herb, Zhang Xian headed to his residence in the elite sector. His residence outside was currently too small, so it was extremely inconvenient there. On top of that, the treatment to save Wei Ruyan also required an area with a high concentration of spiritual energy, and his residence outside clearly couldn't compare to this. However, when they arrived at Zhang Xian's residence in the elite sector, he saw someone guarding the entrance. It was Huang Xing, Zhou Tong, and the others, the seniors who had allocated the residence to him back then. Stacked beside them were his personal belongings which he had stored inside the residence. What is going on? Zhang Xian frowned. Zhang Shi, school head Lu just passed an order saying that you are prohibited from staying here because you aren't a student of the academy. His authority is higher than that of school head Mo, so there's nothing we can about it either. I beg your pardon, Zhang Shi, Huang Xing said with a reddened face. He had also heard of the matter in the physician school, and honestly speaking, he was filled with respect and admiration for Zhang Xian's actions as well. However, the person standing on the opposing side was the head of the apothecary school, the stand-in principal of the Master Teacher Academy. No matter how gutsy he was, he dared not disobey school head Lu's orders. Thus, he could only move Zhang Xian's possessions out of his residence. Hearing those words, Zhang Xian's face turned livid. He hadn't thought that Lu Feng would act so swiftly. This residence was built upon a spirit-gathering formation, thus resulting in a dense concentration of spiritual energy around it. Such conditions were ideal for the 10-leafed flower to nourish Wei Ruyan's soul. The treatment wouldn't be as effective if he were to conduct it in his residence outside. However, it was indeed true that he had declared that he wasn't a student of the academy, so he had no right to live there. What should I do? Zhang Xian rubbed his glabella, troubled. Resigned, he placed his possessions in his storage ring and prepared to head back to his residence outside. However, at that moment, a middle-aged man, under the lead of a senior, suddenly walked up to him. Zhang Shi, this man is looking for you, the senior reported before retreating to the side. The middle-aged man clasped his fist and asked, May I confirm that you are Zhang Shi? Zhang Xian frowned. You are. I am the butler of King Huai Manor, Yuqing. Our master has bought an accommodation for Zhang Shi, and it is located just a short distance away from the academy. He tasked me to deliver the deed to you, and I will be grateful if you accept it. As he spoke, Yuqing took out a jade box, and opening it, a housing deed and land deed came into sight. Taking a look at the land deed, Zhang Xian saw the location written on it and he froze. Accommodation. That manor was bought by your master. Chapter 8:15. Hu Yaoyao's true identity written on the land deed was the specific location of the plot of land, and it was indicating the location of the manor that Hu Yaoyao said was where the old residence of Wu Yangzi used to be situated. Back then, when he learned that the manor belonged to him, he was extremely perplexed. He racked his mind to figure out who it could be, but never had he thought that it would be King Huai. He never had any interaction with King Huai, except for the fact that Zheng Yang and the others had stayed in his manor for a few days, and his ambiguous relationship with the Yuan clan, who had taken Yuan Tao with them. To be honest, they couldn't even be considered acquaintances, having just met once. Yet, the other party was gifting him a luxurious manor worth more than 100 high-tier spirit stones. Wasn't this a little too much? But thinking about it carefully, King Huai was indeed the only one who had the financial resources to spare to carry this out. Even though Mo Gaoyuan, school head Mo, and others were prestigious 6-star master teachers, their wealth still couldn't be compared to a king who wielded immense power in Hongyuan Empire. That's right. Butler Yu Qing nodded respectfully. I don't think I have done anything worthy of this gift from King Huai. Zhang Xian shook his head. As much as he was interested in the manor, he had no ties with King Huai whatsoever. It wasn't really appropriate to accept such a valuable gift from a stranger. My master has ordered me to deliver the land deed and housing deed to you regardless of the cost. Otherwise, I might be kicked out of the King Huai manor or even be severely punished for my lapse in duty. Yu Qing said anxiously. Furthermore, this manor is registered under your name. If you continue to turn me down, I really do not know what I will do with the manor. Hearing those words, Zhang Xian frowned. He had noticed it just now as well. The owner registered on the land deed and housing deed was indeed him. In other words, King Huai had guessed that he would reject the gift, so he chose to register the manor straight under his name. After a moment of hesitation, Zhang Xian nodded. All right, I will accept it then. Sun Cheng, take the jade box. When I am free, I will make sure to pay King Huai a visit so as to express my gratitude. It was a fact that he needed a better accommodation at the moment, and Wu Yangzi's treasure was located within the manor as well. Since the other party was determined to give the manor to him, there was no need for him to refuse it anyway. At most, he would find an opportunity to offer some guidance to King Huai or resolve the illnesses he was suffering from in order to repay the favor. Actually, the other party's intention behind giving him the manor wasn't too difficult to figure out. What King Huai was interested in wasn't him but Yuan Tao. Yuan Tao possessed the emperor's bloodline. Once he returned to the Yuan clan, a sage clan, the Yuan clan would surely devote their resources to grooming him. It would just be a matter of time before he became a powerhouse of the master-teacher continent. Considering that he was Yuan Tao's teacher, it wasn't too difficult to imagine his standing then. King Huai might be unable to fawn over Yuan Tao, but if he could get on close terms with him, it would be equivalent to building a connection to the Yuan clan as well. Even if Zhang Xian were to adamantly reject the manor, it was likely that King Huai might still resort to other means to get to him. Since that was the case, he might as well just accept this manor. Thank you, Zhang Shi. Butler Yu Qing had thought that Zhang Shi would need some convincing before accepting the manor, but the latter suddenly agreed to it. Excited, he hurriedly passed the housing deed and land deed to Sun Cheng before clasping his fist. I will be taking my leave then. Zhang Xian waved his hands to dismiss the other party. Since we have a new residence now, let's head there. Without any hesitation, he left with the others behind him. It was just a moment ago that Huang Xing and the others had stopped Zhang Xian from entering his old residence in the elite sector when King Huai suddenly sent him a massive manor. They glanced at one another with blank looks on their faces, not knowing what to say. It was clear that school head Lu had done all of this to humiliate Zhang Xian, but now, not only was Zhang Xian not humiliated, he even gave a tight slap back to school head Lu. If they were to report this matter to school head Lu, would the latter fly into a rage and punish them instead? What the heck was this? If they had known earlier, they would have never gotten involved in this matter. Oblivious to the woes Huang Xing's group faced, Zhang Xian, Sun Chang, and the others left the academy, and not too long later, they arrived before a massive manor. Young master. Before he could even knock on the doors, Jia. The doors creaked open, and a huge army of guards and servants rushed out to welcome him. A butler stepped forward and reported, King Huai has sent us here out of worry to tend to your needs. I see, help me relay my gratitude to King Huai. Zhang Xian nodded. King Huai had truly put a lot of effort into this matter. Not only did he purchase such a luxurious manor in a prime location, he even refurbished the manor and prepared all of the servants required to manage it. He sure was generous. Indeed, it would be difficult for Sun Chang and the others to tidy up the manor by themselves. Since he had already accepted the manor, adding a little more to the debt didn't mean much anymore. All he had to do was to find a way to return the favor when the time came. Following the butler into the residence, Zhang Xian couldn't help but gasp in awe. It seemed like great care had been taken in the refurbishment as well. The manor was extravagant but not lacking in elegance, magnificent but soothing at the same time. It was exquisitely designed to harmonize with nature. In an instant, Zhang Xian felt as if he had walked into a massive park. It was apparent that a spirit-gathering formation had been set up here. The spiritual energy in the manor was extremely dense. In terms of concentration, it was on par even with his residence in the elite sector. Incredible. Zhang Xian nodded in satisfaction. From the looks of it, it seemed like King Huai must have spent a bomb on the refurbishment of the manor as well, perhaps even costing more than the manor itself. In any case, if Zhang Xian had bought the manor himself, there was no way he would have been able to make it like that. Walking into the main hall at the very center of the manor, Zhang Xian instructed, Sun Chang, you shall go with the great violet-winged beast to bring Wei Ruyan over. Yes. Sun Chang nodded before taking his leave. After finding a place to keep Yusu locked up, Zhang Xian took a walk around the manor, and he soon arrived at a flower garden. He paced around the area a few times before finally taking the 10-leafed flower out and planting it in the ground. This was the area in the manor where the spiritual energy focused. By storing the medicinal herb here, he would be able to maintain its freshness. After planting it in the ground, Zhang Xian dripped a few droplets of earth vein spirit essence on it before heaving a sigh of relief. In order to have the 10-leafed flower nourish Wei Ruyan's soul, Zhang Xian had to keep it alive first. Otherwise, if the flower were to wither, the soul that was bound to it would dissipate as well. In order to ensure that nothing went wrong, Zhang Xian took out several dozen formation flags from his storage ring and planted them in the area, creating a formation to keep others out. Only after this was done did Zhang Xian finally heave a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to return to his room, he suddenly saw Luo Qiqi and Hu Yaoyao walking over. Teacher, is this manor really yours? Even at this point, Luo Qiqi could still hardly believe that it was true. After all, this place was simply far too extravagant, and it would be no exaggeration to say that it was on par with the royal palace. To abruptly give such a place to her teacher for no apparent reason, it was normal that she would be skeptical. Zhang Xian nodded. Let's head in to speak. Thus, the three of them headed to the main hall. Hu Yaoyao, are you certain that this is Elder Wu Yangzi's old residence? Zhang Xian asked. Yes, I am certain. Hu Yaoyao replied decisively. Seeing the lack of hesitation in her response, Zhang Xian frowned. The reason he and Luo Qiqi were looking for Wu Yangzi's old residence was to obtain the treasure he had hidden. However, this manor had already changed hands several times, and considering the many times it had been refurbished and renovated, probably every inch of ground here had been dug before. Even if there was a treasure here, the chances were that it would have been taken away. Just as Zhang Xian was deep in contemplation, Hu Yaoyao suddenly spoke once more. The reason Zhang Shi is determined to find Elder Wu Yangzi's old residence, if I am not mistaken, is to find the treasure that he left behind, right? Treasure? What treasure? Zhang Xian feigned ignorance. There's no need for you to hide it from me. There are some members in my bewitching devil faction who are blacksmiths too, and I have heard that the both of you found Elder Wu Yangzi's corpse. Hu Yaoyao said. Since you found Elder Wu Yangzi's corpse, surely you've learned of the existence of his treasure as well. It has been 2,000 years since Elder Wu Yangzi disappeared. Even if we managed to find his corpse, he would have already been long dead. How could we possibly receive any clues about his treasure from him? Zhang Xian shook his head and sighed in disappointment. To tell you the truth, I already knew what you two were up to when you asked me about the location of Elder Wu Yangzi's old residence. It's just that I chose not to point it out since you were unwilling to talk about it. Chuckling lightly, Hu Yaoyao returned back to her usual coquettish self and said, "Don't worry. Of the entire Hongyuan city, I am the only one who knows about the treasure that Elder Wu Yangzi left behind. Thus, you need not worry about the news being leaked." Since the other party had already brought things out into the light, Zhang Xian couldn't be bothered to keep up with the disguise anymore. Thus, he turned his gaze to her and asked, "Oh? Since you said so, I would really like to ask you what your relationship with Elder Wu Yangzi is. Why do you know so much about him?" In the first place, it was already bizarre how certain she was about where Wu Yangzi's old residence had been. But to think that she would know about the existence of the treasure on top of that. This was suspicious. "You want to know?" Hu Yaoyao smiled. Taking a deep breath, she drove her Zhenqi. Wang. The next moment, with a jolt, her slender body suddenly emanated a slight glow, and the strength of the aura she exuded surged. "This is the quintuple incandescence golden body." Luo Qiqi exclaimed in shock as she exchanged glances with Zhang Xian. No matter how they looked at it, the technique was the secret art they had learned from Wu Yangzi, quintuple incandescence golden body. But didn't this physical body cultivation technique go missing long ago? How did Hu Yaoyao learn it? Furthermore, from the looks of it, it seemed like she had spent quite some time studying and cultivating it as well, reaching second incandescence just like Zhang Xian. Indeed, this is the quintuple incandescence golden body. Hu Yaoyao nodded as she halted the flow of her Zhenqi. "This is a technique I inherited from my ancestor." "Your ancestor? Isn't the quintuple incandescence golden body? Wait, could it be?" Luo Qiqi was astonished. "In truth, my surname is not Hu but Wu," Hu Yaoyao said. "Wu Yangzi is my ancestor. But if you are a descendant of Elder Wu Yangzi, why did you change your surname to Hu?" Zhang Xian was perplexed. As a grandmaster blacksmith, Wu Yangzi possessed immense prestige in Hongyuan City. It should have been an honor to have such an ancestor. Why would his descendants choose to conceal their heritage instead? Hu Yaoyao harumphed coldly. "If we didn't change our surname, our lineage would have been massacred by others long ago." "Massacred?" Zhang Xian frowned. "But this is where the Master Teacher Academy is located. There are actually people who dare to lay their hands on you. With both a Master Teacher Pavilion and Master Teacher Academy taking root here, who would dare to lay their hands on Wu Yangzi's descendants?" "Dare? Do you really think that it was possible for Wu Yangzi to be kidnapped by others so easily? Not to mention, does it make sense that he didn't even have a chance to leave a message or call for help?" Hu Yaoyao asked. In truth, Zhang Xian also felt that there was something amiss with the matter. Back in the underground chamber, the otherworldly demon puppets whom he had faced were all at St. Wan Dan. While they were a formidable force in Hongyuan Empire, it was still nigh impossible for them to deal with a figure who could potentially make the breakthrough to become a 7-star blacksmith so discreetly. Could there really be some kind of hidden secret behind this matter? Chapter 8:16, going to the apothecary school to play as an upper nine paths occupation. The blacksmith guild had a strict requirement on the cultivation of its members. Considering that Wu Yangzi was known to be extremely close to achieving a breakthrough to 7-star, he must have been at St. Wan Dan pinnacle. On top of that, as the greatest blacksmith in Hongyuan Empire's history, he must have possessed a lot of valuable artifacts as well. Even if school head Mo, school head Zhao, school head Lu, and the others were to gang up against him, it would still have been extremely difficult for them to kill him. Yet, a bunch of St. Wan Dan otherworldly demons actually managed to infiltrate Hongyuan City and captured Wu Yangzi without anyone noticing, imprisoning him until his death. This was unimaginable in itself. Judging from Hu Yaoyao's tone, it seemed she knew a thing or two about the matter. It was likely that Wu Yangzi's capture was not as simple as it seemed. What happened back then? Zhang Xian asked. There are too many implications in this matter, and I don't have any concrete evidence either, so I won't talk about it for the moment. The only reason I revealed my identity to you is to earn your trust. If you really are looking for Wu Yangzi's treasure, I might be able to help you. Hu Yaoyao said. Since you are a descendant of Elder Wu Yangzi, there's no need for us to hide this matter from you. You're right, the reason we are looking for his old residence is to find the treasure he has left behind, Zhang Xian revealed. However, the details he left for us are extremely unclear. He only mentioned that he left something behind in his old residence, but as for what it is and where it isn't clear to us either. Even though Zhang Xian admitted it, he didn't tell Hu Yaoyao about the clue to the treasure he had received from the underground chamber. It was not that he distrusted Hu Yaoyao, but the implications behind this matter were simply too great. Better safe than sorry. I have a rough idea of the items he has left behind, but I have been here many times, and I haven't found any trace of his treasure at all. Hu Yaoyao said with a doubtful expression. As Wu Yangzi's descendant, she knew of the existence of Wu Yangzi's treasure. However, the only one who knew where it was buried was Wu Yangzi himself. She had visited this manor many times over the years, hoping to find it, but there was no sign of it anywhere. We can take our time. Since this manor is mine now, we can slowly figure out where it is. Zhang Xian replied. Wu Yangzi had said that he had left behind something that could help one reach sainthood at the 3 stars of the Earth Dragon. As long as one were to place 3 formation flags according to the 3 stars, the object would appear automatically. Zhang Xian was still unable to figure out what the 3 stars of the Earth Dragon referred to, so he had no idea where to start. However, with the confirmation of the location of Wu Yangzi's old residence, they had managed to reduce the search perimeter significantly. As long as it was within that manor, they would eventually find it if they were to search carefully. Most probably, Wu Yangzi's treasure isn't as simple as to only help one achieve sainthood. Zhang Xian thought. Somehow, he felt that the reason Wu Yangzi's descendants were being hunted down was due to the treasure as well. Zhang Xian proceeded to ask Hu Yaoyao a few more questions about Wu Yangzi's old residence, but the manor had gone through far too many hands over the years. It was impossible for anyone to tell what the manor had been like 2000 ago. Alright, you should find a place to rest first. I have to treat Wei Ruyan now. We will talk afterward. Soon, Sun Chang and the great violet-winged beast returned with Wei Ruyan. Without any hesitation, Zhang Xian rushed over to receive them. He immediately checked on Wei Ruyan's state. After she was nourished by his soul essence 2 days ago, her condition had improved significantly. But even so, she was still in a coma at the moment. He carried her to the area where he had planted the 10-leafed flower earlier and began his treatment. He first drew his soul out, and using a soul art, he transferred her soul into the 10-leafed flower. After accomplishing this, he heaved a sigh of relief. For the time being, he would be leaving Wei Ruyan's soul with the 10-leafed flower to allow the latter to nourish her. This process would require at least 3 days. After which, Zhang Xian took out the earth vein spirit essence to nourish Wei Ruyan's body as well, but a moment later, a deep frown appeared on his face. It seems that the most the Earth Vein Spirit Essence can do is to maintain her current physical condition. If I wish to restore vitality to her body, I will need the Grand Intermittence Pill. The Grand Intermittence Pill was a grade 7 pill. Given Zhang Xian's current capability, it would be impossible for him to have it forged. Furthermore, he didn't have the pill formula nor the medicinal herbs required for it. It seems like I will have to pay the apothecary school a visit. Zhang Xian muttered under his breath. To have the Grand Intermittence Pill forged, he would have to first raise his pill forging skills to that of a 6-star pinnacle apothecary. Following which, he would have to apply for the pill formula of the Grand Intermittence Pill from the headquarters, purchase the necessary ingredients, and finally, find a 6-star pinnacle apothecary to forge it in his stead. There's still some time before nightfall. I'll just make a quick trip there then. It was barely dawn when Zhang Xian had returned to the academy from the Cloud Mist Ridge. After which, despite breaking many records in the physician school and clearing the 6-star physician examination, it had only taken him around 30 minutes in total for that, and the life and death physician duel with Yu Su had taken another 30 minutes, too. Following which, the procuring of the 10-leafed flower, obtaining the housing deed and land deed to the manor, moving into the manor. Even after everything was done, it was also only barely noon. There was still some time before the appointment he had made with Luo Ruoxin at night. As the saying goes, vengeance in the moment. Since he had said that he would pay a visit to the apothecary school and he happened to have the time for it now, wouldn't it only be right for him to head there? After all, he was a master teacher. How could he break his promise? In a vast room within the apothecary school sat a livid-faced Lu Feng. In front of him were 4 other elders gathered around a table. The reason I gathered all of you here is to discuss how we can save Yu Su. Lu Feng said gravely. School head, it's Yu Su's own fault for getting into such a plight. A master teacher should honor his promises. Yet, vice school head, you reneged on his promise and even willfully caused the death of a saint. This is more than enough to have him sentenced in the tribunal of master teacher. One of the elders shook his head and sighed. Furthermore, he lost to another in a fair life and death physician duel. Even if we wish to save him, there is no legitimate pretext we can use. If I may, I think it would be in our best interest to drop the matter. If Zhang Xian were here, he would surely be able to recognize the other party as vice school head Zhou Qing. He was the one who had helped Luo Ruoxin to clean her podium when she conducted her public lecture back then. Drop the matter? You must be joking. If not for Yu Su contributing the saint herbs he had been cultivating to us, do you think that you would have been able to forge a 6-star pinnacle pill? Do you think that you would have been able to make such rapid progress in your pill forging skills over the years? An elder interjected furiously. Indeed. Our apothecary school is indebted to Yu Su. We can't allow him to be taken away just like that, especially not by a student, another elder added. We have to deal with this matter sternly. Otherwise, if we allow students to act as they please, what will become of our Master Teacher Academy? The last elder said. Just like most of the schools, the apothecary school had 4 vice school heads as well. I know that all of us are indebted to Yu Su, but the one who is at fault for this matter is him. On top of that, the other party followed the rules and went by the official procedure, such that even the physician school has no objection to it. If we were to interfere in this matter any further, I fear that others might say that we are narrow-minded. Zhou Qing frowned. Narrow-minded? Humph. That fellow has no respect for his elders at all, putting down the school head in public. If we don't teach him a lesson, won't others start going over our heads as well? The first elder harumphed. But it is the school head who interfered in the duel for. Vice school head Zhou frowned, but before he could finish his words, Lu Feng abruptly slammed his palm on the table. Enough. The reason I gathered all of you is to discuss how we should resolve this matter, not to bicker with one another. Lu Feng roared. At this moment, he was still feeling extremely frustrated inside. Despite being the stand-in principal of the Master Teacher Academy, he was snubbed by a 20-year-old fellow in public and left in a tough spot. Just recalling the matter left rage boiling within him. That Zhang Xian has been causing trouble all around ever since he enrolled at the Master Teacher Academy. No matter how talented he is, the Master Teacher Academy will not tolerate a student who attempts to undermine its authority. School head Lu Feng waved his hands grandly. Besides, in the physician school, he has already publicly acknowledged that he isn't a student of the academy. Thus, I have sent men to clear away his stuff from his residence in the elite sector, disallowing him from taking even a single step into the residence anymore. This. Vice School Head Zhou was slightly worried by Lu Feng's extreme actions. School head, no matter what, Zhang Xian has School Head Mo, School Head Zhao, and School Head Wei's backing. If you do this, won't you draw their discontent? Even if Zhang Xian wasn't a student of the academy, as a person favored by the school heads, it was nothing much for him to possess a residence in the Master Teacher Academy. To kick him away like that was equivalent to provoking the 3 school heads as well. Discontent? I am operating by the rules of the academy, what do they have to be discontented about? Lu Feng sneered coldly. The residences in the vicinity of the academy are extremely expensive. Let's see where he can go after he gets kicked out. Vice School Head Zhou shook his head, disagreeing with Lu Feng's decision. He was going to persuade Lu Feng against it once again when someone knocked on the door outside. School Head Lu, Grade 2 student Huang Xing seeks an audience. Come in. Upon hearing that it was Huang Xing, who was in charge of managing the elite sector, outside, Lu Feng gave him permission to enter. Upon stepping into the room, Huang Xing was shocked to see that the school head and the 4 vice school heads were all present in the room, and he hurriedly clasped his fist to greet them. Huang Xing pays respect to school head Lu and the vice school heads. So, how did the matter which I entrusted you with go? Lu Feng asked. Huang Xing twitched for a brief instant before he swiftly replied, reporting to school head Lu, I have cleared out Zhang Shi's belongings from the residence and taken back possession of it. Well done. Lu Feng stroked his beard as he nodded in satisfaction. A freshman actually tried to go head-to-head with him. Arrogant. Even though Lu Feng couldn't make a move on Zhang Xian personally in consideration of his identity as a master teacher, given the prestige he had accumulated in both the Master Teacher Academy and Hongyuan City over the years, it was still a piece of cake for him to make the life of a mere student a living hell. How is he faring? Is he searching anxiously for lodging? Tell the realtor agencies that no one is to rent or sell any property to him, or else I will get even with the organization personally. Lu Feng said. This. Huang Xing hesitated for an instant before replying. Reporting to school head Lu, he isn't looking for lodging. He isn't looking lodging. Could he still be hanging around the elite sector, refusing to leave? Lu Feng frowned. That's not it. When Zhang Shi came to collect his belongings, King Huai's butler arrived and gifted him a massive manor which spans over 300 mu in area. Its interior design is also grand and beautiful, reminiscent of the royal palace. So, he moved in there. Huang Xing said with a flushed face. King Huai gifted him a manor. Lu Feng widened his eyes in shock. It was just a moment ago that he'd had the other party kicked from his residence, and now the other party had been given an extravagant manor. Was this for real? Yes. Huang Xing replied nervously. Even though he was afraid to say it, this was simply the truth. Not only was school head Lu's action of kicking the other party out of his residence completely ineffective, it had also made a complete enemy out of the other party. With a livid face, Lu Feng was just about to ask for more details when a young man abruptly barged into the room. Teacher, bad news. The young man who barged in was Lu Feng's direct disciple. Seeing the fluster on his direct disciple's face, Lu Feng frowned. What's wrong? It's Zhang Xian. He's come to our apothecary school, the young man yelled anxiously. Chapter 8:17, The Exodus. He's come to the apothecary school. School head Lu was taken aback for a brief moment before narrowing his eyes. He is no longer a student of the academy, why didn't anyone stop him? Considering that Zhang Xian was no longer a student of the academy, how could he be allowed to enter the premises of the academy as he pleased? He possesses the personal tokens of school head Imo, school head Zhao, and school head Wei. On top of that, he's also the teacher of 3 guest elders, so his seniority is higher than even teachers. We weren't able to stop him. The young man's face turned crimson. It was not as if the Master Teacher Academy was some forbidden land exclusive to only students and teachers. Furthermore, the other party had the personal tokens of 3 school heads, so how could they stop him? What is he doing at the apothecary school? Lu Feng asked with an awful complexion. What the other party said was true. Putting aside the students, even he didn't have the official authority to hinder Zhang Xian from going to the apothecary school. I'm not too sure either. As soon as he arrived in the apothecary school, he headed straight for the library, the young man said. The library? Lu Feng frowned. But he doesn't have a student token on him, what is he doing there? To enter the library, there were 2 things that one needed, a student token and academic credits. After clearing the wall of dilemma, Zhang Xian had no lack of academic credits. However, without a student token, he couldn't be considered a student of the academy, so naturally, he wasn't allowed to use their facilities. He stopped right before the entrance of the library and went into a daze. At this point, a bizarre expression surfaced on the young man's face. Went into a daze. Lu Feng and the other vice school heads were dumbstruck by what they heard. He specially made the trip into the apothecary school just to stand in a daze before their library. That's right. He stood there completely motionless, speaking not a single word, his eyes fixated on the library, the young man replied. School head Lu and the 4 vice school heads blinked blankly. They were wondering what the fellow could be up to, coming to the apothecary school, but to think that he would go into a daze. What the heck? Is he still there? Lu Feng asked. He was still there when I left. It has been around an hour since then, the young man replied. Upon hearing that Zhang Xian was there, Lu Feng was stunned for a moment. No matter how he thought about it, it felt that there was something wrong with the matter, so he stood up. That fellow caused the collapse of the passageway of records in the blacksmith school and the tower of physicians in the physician school. I think that he's up to no good here too. Follow me to take a look. Even though he had only met Zhang Xian once, he still remembered how tenacious Zhang Xian had been when he cornered him on the stage. Furthermore, Zhang Xian had also threatened to challenge the apothecary school back then as well. For some reason, he felt extremely unnerved, and his heart simply wouldn't calm down. The only way he could ease his mind was to take a look personally. Yes. Recalling the various deeds that Zhang Shi had done in the past, the mouths of the 4 vice school heads also twitched as well, and they hurriedly got to their feet. In truth, when they heard about how Zhang Xian wreaked havoc in other schools previously, they had even gloated over it. But now that it was happening to their own school, they couldn't help but feel as if peril was right behind them, and it left them fidgety. They immediately rushed off to the library at top speed, and it took them less than 10 minutes to arrive at their destination. The library looked no different from before, towering and majestic. It didn't seem as if it was damaged in the least, and Zhang Xian was nowhere to be seen either. Perplexed, Lu Feng turned to the student and asked, "Where is he?" "I have no idea." "He was definitely here just now," the young man said in confusion as he raised his finger and pointed to a specific spot. That fellow had been standing in a daze in front of the library for some time before he felt that something was amiss and went to look for the school head. Why did he suddenly disappear from there? But one thing noteworthy about the surroundings was that, perhaps drawn here by Zhang Xian's reputation, quite a crowd had gathered. Wait a moment, I will find someone to ask. After scanning the surroundings and seeing that Zhang Xian was nowhere in sight, the young man walked toward the small shack beside the library entrance. That was where the few grade 3 students in charge of looking after the library stayed. But before the young man even reached the shack, Jia. The shack doors opened, and 2 young men walked out. Recognizing one of the duo, the young man called out. Hu Su. Senior Lu Hui. Hu Su clasped his fist and returned the greeting. Seeing that the duo was carrying their luggage with them, Lu Hui asked bewilderedly, "Where are you two going?" Students working as the library guards were expected to stay in the shack for the entire semester in order to take care of it around the clock. It was just a few days since the start of the semester, but why were they both carrying their luggage out of the shack? Reporting to Senior, we have just listened to Zhang Shi's lecture, and his words have enlightened us. We feel that we aren't suited to studying pill forging, so, we have decided to leave the apothecary school and study another occupation instead. Hu Su reported. Lecture. Lu Hui widened his eyes upon hearing those words. Lu Feng and the others couldn't help but turn their gazes over as well. That fellow was lecturing here. With a bitter smile, Hu Su said with a depressed look, "Yes." After standing in a daze for a moment, Zhang Shi began to lecture us. I was one of the fortunate few who happened to hear it, and it was only then that I realized that even though apothecary is ranked at the top of the upper 9 paths, an extremely prestigious occupation, I am simply not suited for it. All those years I have spent studying the art of pill forging, they were all in vain. Zhang Shi's lecture was comprehensive and profound, and all who had listened to it had benefited greatly from it. Although Hu Su had studied pill forging for some time, the lecture had made him realize that he was simply not suited to be an apothecary. Even if he were to attempt to force his way through, the mismatch in his aptitude would make it an uphill battle, and eventually, he would only reach a bottleneck. Rather than suffer on but achieve nothing in the end, it would be much better for him to let go. In any case, there were 9 supporting occupations in the Master Teacher Academy. Even if he didn't study pill forging, there were still others he could explore. Surely, there would be one that would be aligned with his aptitude. Hearing Hu Su's words, Lu Hui couldn't help but ask the other grade 3 student standing beside him, "You also don't think that you are suited for pill forging?" "That's right, I also don't think that I am suited either. Farewell, Senior." Leaving those words behind, they turned around and left. With their departure, there would be no one to guard the library anymore. The school head and the 4 vice school heads glanced at one another with a slightly troubled look, seemingly at a loss about what to do. However, the worst had yet to come. The next moment, a few more students walked over, and just like Hu Su and the student beside him just now, they were carrying baggage with them as well. Taking a closer look at their faces, one of the vice school heads exclaimed in surprise, "Vice school head Wei, aren't those your students?" Occasionally, the school heads and vice school heads of the Master Teacher Academy would take in some students under their tutelage as well, just like how Wei Ranxue took in Hu Yaoyao. Recognizing them, vice school head Wei replied, "Yes, they are indeed my students, Xu Yongning and the others. But they are carrying their luggage. Could it be that they don't think that they are suited for pill forging, too?" The mouth of the other vice school head twitched. "How is that possible?" Vice school head Wei exclaimed. "Xu Yongning might not be the most talented apothecary among the students under me, but he definitely ranks among the top few. His aptitude for pill forging is extremely high, and it's only a matter of time before he becomes a 6-star apothecary. How can he possibly be unsuited for pill forging?" Xu Yongning was one of his most outstanding students. If even he was unsuited for pill forging, who else would be? Then, the other vice school head asked doubtfully. For him to be carrying his luggage, it seemed he had the same intention as Hu Su as well. If he wasn't intending to leave the apothecary school, what else could he be up to then? "I'll go ask him." With a livid expression, vice school head Wei harumphed and stepped forward. However, at that moment, Shu Yongning seemed to have noticed him and rushed forward to greet him. "Teacher." Shu Yongning clasped his fist. "What happened?" Vice School Head Wei asked with narrowed eyes. "Reporting to teacher, I am here to bid you farewell." Shu Yongning suddenly got to his knees and lowered his head in shame. "Bid me farewell? Could it be that you found that you are unsuited to be an apothecary, too?" Hearing those words, Vice School Head Wei felt so furious that he could burst into flames on the spot. "Of course not. It's just that I don't think that I am suited for teacher's lessons, and it will be difficult for me to make substantial improvement under your tutelage. Thus, I don't wish for you to waste your precious time on me, so I've decided to bid you farewell." Shu Yongning spoke hesitantly. Flicking his wrist, he took out the other party's tutelage token and handed it back. Just as teachers could choose their students, students could choose their teachers. This was a two-way relationship. "My lessons are not suited for you." Vice School Head Wei was stunned. He was the vice head of the apothecary school, a 6-star pinnacle apothecary, and his knowledge of pill forging was only beneath school head Lu Feng by a notch. Yet, this fellow actually wanted to withdraw from his tutelage. "Yes. After hearing Zhang Shi's lecture, I finally understand what pill forging truly means. Even though teachers' lessons are impressive as well, I find Zhang Shi's teachings are far more impactful and profound. Thus, I intend to join the Xianxian faction to pursue Zhang Shi. I am truly sorry, and I beg for teachers' understanding." After placing the tutelage token back into the shocked Vice School Head Wei's hands, Shu Yongning stood up, turned around, and left. Vice School Head Wei was completely stunned. His face was twitching non-stop, and he felt as if he was going to lose his sanity soon. To think that someone would actually withdraw from the lesson of a 6-star pinnacle apothecary like him. Not to mention, the reason was that his lessons were inferior of freshmen's. The hell! This was a severe slap right to his face. "Teacher, we are also here to withdraw from your tutelage. Please forgive us." Zhang Shi's lecture was a true eye-opener. It was only a short lecture, but it made me realize that only through pursuing him will I be able to make greater progress as an apothecary. Before Vice School Head Wei could recover from the primary shock, the other students who were with Shu Yongning hurriedly rushed forward and passed their tutelage tokens back as well. Chapter 8:18. Even they have fled. In that instant, Lu Feng's body swayed weakly from side to side. It was just a moment ago that he had declared his confidence in his lessons, but then these fellows said that they would like to withdraw from his tutelage. "Must you really slap my face like that?" Suppressing his overwhelming rage, School Head Lu asked hoarsely, "Why?" One of the students hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Reporting to teacher, after listening to Zhang Shi's lecture, we feel like we have squandered the past few years of our lives learning pill forging. Thus, we hope that you can let us go. Even though we are withdrawing from your tutelage, you will forever be our teacher in our hearts. We will never show the slightest disrespect to you. If there's no comparison, there's no damage." It was only after hearing Zhang Shi's lecture that they finally understood what pill forging truly was and how many detours they had taken under School Head Lu's tutelage. If they had learned from Zhang Shi from the very start, they would have definitely already become a 6-star apothecary or even higher by now. They knew full well that withdrawing from their teacher's tutelage would sully his reputation, but for their own futures, they had no other choice. Just like how teachers could choose their students, students could choose their own teachers as well. Even if they had already acknowledged Lu Feng as their teacher, they still had the freedom to withdraw from his tutelage. After all, they were just ordinary students, not direct disciples. Squandered the past few years of your lives. School Head Lu staggered, and he felt a crushing pressure on his chest. For a moment, he found himself unable to catch his breath. To think that he, the head of the apothecary school, as well as the most formidable master apothecary in Hongyuan Empire, would have his lessons described to be squandering one's life away. Arg, my heart and my lungs. Just what did that fellow say for all of you to be so mesmerized and impressed by him? With a livid expression, Lu Feng dripped a drop of blood on their tutelage tokens as he said, "Fine, I will allow you to withdraw from my tutelage as long as you tell me where Zhang Xian is." His students had already spoken such words. It would only further his humiliation if he were to attempt to retain his students after all of that. The student pondered for a moment before replying. After Zhang Shi finished his lecture, he headed to the apothecary pavilion. It seems he intends to take the 6-star apothecary examination. Apothecary pavilion? Ignoring those fellows who had just withdrawn from his tutelage, school head Lu turned around and beckoned the others. Let's go and take a look. Similar to the Tower of Physicians, the apothecary pavilion was a place where apothecaries could interact with one another and take their examinations. There were also all kinds of tests that one could take there. Leaving Lu Hui behind to guard the library temporarily, Lu Feng and the other vice school heads hurriedly proceeded forward. Just like the Tower of Physicians, the apothecary pavilion was also an extremely tall building, as well as the landmark of the apothecary school. Seeing that the apothecary pavilion was still standing tall and grand, the group heaved a sigh of relief. Judging from Zhang Xian's past history of bringing forth destruction, even Lu Feng couldn't help but feel a little fearful. Entering the apothecary pavilion, there was a huge crowd selling and purchasing pills and looking for pill forging services, as per usual. There didn't seem to be anything out of ordinary. Did he not come here? The school head and vice school heads glanced at one another in confusion. They had long heard of what had happened to the Tower of Physicians. Wherever Zhang Xian appeared, destruction and catastrophe followed. If he was truly here, how could everything still be intact? This didn't make sense. Let me ask around. After a moment of hesitation, Vice School Head Wei stepped forward and stopped a student. "Student, was there anything weird that happened here?" Vice School Head Wei. Recognizing the other party, the student leaped in shock. She pondered for a moment before hurriedly replying, "No, nothing happened at all." Nothing happened at all? Vice School Head Wei gazed at the student's face intently for a moment before waving his hands. "I see. You may go." "Yes." The student hurriedly left. After which, Vice School Head Wei proceeded to ask a few more students, but they gave the same response as well. Having confirmed that nothing had happened, he returned back to a group with a relieved smile on his face. "It seems like our worry is unfounded. No matter how formidable he is, that Zhang Xian is still only a 20-year-old lad. Since he already possesses a profound understanding in the way of medicine and smithing, it would be asking too much for him to be skilled in pill forging as well. Perhaps it might be something else that led to the students before withdrawing from the school. Let's hope that's the case." School head Lu nodded with an uneasy smile. Even though nothing had happened, he still had an ominous premonition. If it was so easy to deal with that fellow, he wouldn't have been so troubled over this matter. "Let's head to the 6-star apothecary examination apothecary forge to take a look," School head Lu said. The group headed to the upper levels of the apothecary pavilion, where the apothecary forges for the apothecary examinations were located. However, the examination area was extremely peaceful. It didn't seem like anything had happened here at all. Thus, they called the teacher in charge of managing the apothecary forges over. "Did anyone come over to take the apothecary examination earlier?" Lu Feng asked. "No one at all. I have been here since morning, and I haven't seen anyone here." The teacher shook his head doubtfully, not sure why school head Lu would ask such a question. "No one at all?" Lu Feng was still slightly doubtful. His students had clearly told him that Zhang Xian had headed here to take the 6-star examination, but why wasn't he in the apothecary forges then? "No one at all." If school head still doesn't believe me, I have the records here. Noticing the slightly peculiar state the school head was in, the teacher hurriedly handed over a book recording the students taking the apothecary examination. School head Lu took the book and confirmed that no one had been there since the morning. He traded glances with the other vice school heads, and they heaved a sigh of relief together. It seemed like vice school head Wei was right. As talented as that fellow was, he couldn't possibly be that skilled in pill forging as well. After all, each human had their own strengths and weaknesses. If a human were to be that talented in all aspects, he wouldn't be a human but God. It seems I really worried over nothing this time around. Alright, there's nothing else, you can return to your station now. However, if a 20-year-old young man comes here, make sure to report the matter to me immediately. School head Lu instructed. Yes. The teacher replied. At that moment, another thought suddenly struck him, and he asked, School head, I suddenly remembered something. Other than taking the examination here, it's also possible to take the 6-star apothecary examination at the Ancestral Hall as well. Ancestral Hall? Impossible. The Ancestral Hall is prepared solely for students who intend to challenge the pill debate, but it's not like you are unaware of how difficult it is. Even I can't say with absolute confidence that I would be able to pass a 6-star pill debate. Why would anyone go through that additional effort for it when there is an easier way? Lu Feng shook his head. There were 2 formats for apothecary examinations. One of them was to forge a pill with a grade corresponding to the rank which the apothecary was intending to advance to. For example, to clear a 6-star apothecary examination, one had to successfully forge a grade 6 pill. As for the other format, it was the pill debate. The pill debate was conducted in the Ancestral Hall. The Ancestral Hall had a communication wall linked to the Apothecary Guild headquarters, and the headquarters would dispatch 6-star pinnacle apothecaries to conduct the examination. These apothecaries would raise questions in order to verify the examinee's comprehension of pill forging, and the examinee had to answer every single question without making the slightest mistake. However, the 6-star pinnacle apothecaries in the headquarters possessed a far deeper understanding of pills than those in the branches due to their association with higher-ranked apothecaries. To answer their questions without making the slightest mistake, nigh impossible. Putting aside the fact that Zhang Xian was only a 20-year-old lad, even a veteran with 800 years of experience like him couldn't hope to succeed in a pill debate. As a result, almost all apothecaries would opt for the easier pill forging examination rather than the nearly impossible pill debate. That's true. Understanding the logic behind it, the teacher nodded in agreement. But regardless of the case, I think that we should still head to the Ancestral Hall to take a look. Vice School Head Wei interjected. Since they were already there, they might as well check on the Ancestral Hall as well to bring them peace of mind. Lu Feng emphasized for the teacher to keep a tight watch over the apothecary forges once again before heading to the Ancestral Hall with the group. The Ancestral Hall was located in the vicinity of the apothecary forges, so it didn't take too long for them to arrive there. Just like the apothecary forges, the Ancestral Hall was extremely quiet as well. As there were nearly no students who would attempt the pill debate, the apothecary school also didn't bother dispatching anyone to look after the premises. The group entered the grounds, but the area looked exactly how they remembered it to be. It didn't seem like anything had happened there. It doesn't seem like anyone has been here. Vice School Head Wei heaved a sigh of relief. As long as the Ancestral Hall was still standing, it should mean that that fellow hadn't been there, and there was no problem whatsoever, so they need not worry about the matter. However, the next moment, Vice School Head Zhou suddenly widened his eyes and exclaimed, "No, something is wrong." What is wrong? The communication walls and the other items are completely undamaged. Vice School Head Wei asked doubtfully. There were 10 massive communication walls erected in the Ancestral Hall, and all of them were undamaged. It didn't seem like Zhang Xian had come here at all. The communication walls might be fine, but look at the communication jade screen in front. Vice School Head Zhou pointed. Everyone hurriedly turned their gazes over as well. As well as the communication walls, there was also a communication jade screen in the ancestral hall. The former was to relay messages to 6-star apothecaries in the headquarters, while the latter could establish communication with 7-star apothecaries in the headquarters. At the moment, there was still a slight glow on the communication jade token, and it was a little warm to the touch as well. It seemed like someone had just used it. Someone used the communication jade screen. Could it be that Zhang Xian didn't establish communication with the 6-star apothecaries but the 7-star apothecaries instead? Impossible. Is he intending to take the 7-star apothecary pill debate examination? It's questionable whether he can pass the 6-star apothecary pill debate examination or not. To take the 7-star apothecary pill debate examination. Lu Feng, Vice School Head Wei, and the others shook their heads in disagreement. How could it be possible for a 20-year-old freshman of the Master Teacher Academy to take the 7-star apothecary examination? After a moment of silence, a vice school head suddenly spoke up. He's probably here to request a grade 7 pill formula. There could only be two possibilities where one would need to activate the communication jade screen. 1. To take the 7-star apothecary examination. 2. To request a grade 7 pill formula from the headquarters. But regardless of what it is, one has to use 10 different grade 6 pills as a deposit in order to activate the communication jade token. Where did the fellow find so many grade 6 pills? One of the vice school heads asked. 7-star apothecaries were extremely busy. They weren't figures whom one could meet just because they wanted to. As such, one had to compensate the 7-star apothecaries duly for their time, and that was through grade 6 pills. Only if one could take out 10 different grade 6 pills could one activate the communication jade screen. It was due to this rule that there had rarely been anyone who had established communication with a 7-star apothecary ever since the ancestral hall was built. It wasn't that no one dared to reach out to them, but the price was simply far too heavy. No matter how talented Zhang Xian might be, he was only a 20-year-old young man. It was already extremely difficult for him to even buy a residence. How could he possibly be able to take out 10 different grade 6 pills at once? But it is clear that the communication jade screen was activated just a moment ago. This shows that someone did communicate with a 7-star apothecary, Vice School Head Zhou said. Even though it was hard to believe, it was a fact that the communication jade screen had been activated just a moment ago. There was no doubt about this. Could it be? At that moment, Lu Feng suddenly thought of something and his eyes narrowed. Just as he was about to speak, a figure abruptly rushed into the room. School Head Lu. School Head Lu. Bad news. The person who arrived was a familiar middle-aged man in his 40s. It was the teacher who was in charge of the pill chamber. What's wrong? Lu Feng's eyebrows shot up upon seeing the other party's anxious state. The grade 6 pills forged by School Head Lu, the vice school heads, and the teachers of the apothecary school that are stored in the pill chamber have. The middle-aged man looked as if he had seen a ghost, and his lips couldn't stop quivering. What's wrong with the pills? Vice School Head Wei asked anxiously as the other party stuttered at the crucial point. With a tearful face, the middle-aged man exclaimed, "The pills have escaped." Chapter 8:19, Lu Feng's Frenzy, The Pills Have Escaped. What do you mean by they have escaped? Lu Feng and the 4 vice school heads were stunned. Other than a few pills that they would use themselves, most of the 6-star apothecaries in the apothecary school would store the pills they had forged in the pill chamber, where they would be labeled with a price and sold when the opportunity presented itself. The middle-aged man happened to be in charge of this matter. It could be said that most of the wealth of the 6-star apothecaries in the apothecary school was within the pill chamber, and yet, you are telling me that those pills have escaped? Are you kidding me? It's true. They have escaped on their own. the middle-aged man said in a panic, but he had no idea how he could explain the situation. Just like the other teachers in the apothecary school, he was a 6-star master teacher as well. Yet, for a person of his capability to be rendered incapable of explaining himself, the situation he had encountered must have been truly shocking. What in the world happened? With a livid face, Lu Feng demanded furiously, "Explain yourself clearly." "It's like this. I was in one of the pill chambers checking on the pills when all of a sudden, the pills began flying by themselves. They rushed out of the chamber and disappeared into the sky." The middle-aged man said. "You are telling me that the pills flew away by themselves?" The lower jaws of the group of 5 fell to the ground. Just like spirit artifacts, while grade 6 pills did possess a spirit, it was impossible for them to move unless they had acknowledged a master. But making a pill acknowledge one as its master was far more difficult than making an artifact acknowledge one. It would be difficult for even an apothecary to do so, needless to say, others. More importantly, it was clearly impossible to make so many pills acknowledge someone as their master at the same time. Suddenly, Lu Feng recalled something, and he hurriedly asked, before the pills started flying, "Did anyone enter the pill chamber?" A young man in his 20s came by, saying that he wanted to take a look around. He went around touching each and every pill, but eventually, he left without buying a single one, the middle-aged man said after some contemplation. There weren't many people who could afford grade 6 pills, so there were rarely any customers at the pill chamber. That young man was the only guest he had seen the entire day, so he remembered him clearly. A young man in his 20s. Does he look like that? Lu Feng swiftly drew a picture of a young man in the air using his jinqi. Naturally, the young man he drew was Zhang Xian. Upon reaching Saint Realm, one would be able to accomplish many unimaginable feats with jinqi, and drawing a picture in midair was only one of the many abilities. The middle-aged man quickly nodded. "Yes, that's him. As I expected." In that instant, Lu Feng's body shook uncontrollably, and he nearly went insane. He had been worrying that Zhang Xian would reduce the apothecary school to ruins, just like the physician school, so he had been keeping his guard up against the latter. But who knew that, instead of destroying their school, he would end up taking their wealth instead. In order to forge those grade 6 pills, the 6-star apothecaries of the apothecary school had devoted incalculable time, effort, and most importantly of all, money, to the point that even school head Lu and the 4 vice school heads themselves were heavily in debt, waiting for the pills to be sold to earn back their money to clear their debt. But, just by touching each one, that fellow had all of those pills acknowledge him as their master and took them away. If the apothecary pavilion had collapsed, they could just rebuild it with the profit earned from selling those pills. On top of that, the Master Teacher Academy and the Apothecary Guild would also help to cover some of the cost of reparation as well. However, those pills were their personal property, so it was impossible to obtain any reparation from the Master Teacher Academy or the Apothecary Guild. In other words, with the disappearance of those pills, nearly all of the apothecaries in the apothecary school were currently bankrupt. Lu Feng clutched his chest tightly. "My heart, my lungs, my kidneys. Let's go over and take a look." The group hurriedly rushed to the pill chamber, only to see that the vast room was completely empty. As the pills had escaped on their own accord, they had no concrete evidence to prove that this was Zhang Xian's doing. Thus, if the latter were to deny it vehemently, there would be nothing they could do either. Lu Feng turned to the middle-aged man and asked anxiously, "Do you know where the young man who touched the pills earlier went to?" As important as this matter was, it was of greater importance for them to track down Zhang Xian and stop him from doing any more harm. After a moment of thought, the middle-aged man replied, "I'm not too sure. Judging from the direction he left in, I think he might have gone to the apothecary auditorium." Apothecary auditorium? Lu Feng's body shook. This is bad. Without any hesitation, he ran out of the pill chamber and rushed in the direction of the apothecary auditorium. With grim expressions as well, the 4 vice school heads hurriedly followed him. The apothecary auditorium was where most apothecaries listened to public lectures. It was where most of the students of the apothecary school usually spent their time. If that fellow were to go there and lecture like he did outside the library, there might very well be no one left in the entire apothecary school. Screw that. While that fellow had destroyed the buildings in the blacksmith school and physician school, the damage that he had caused could easily be resolved with ample money. On top of that, his deeds had also boosted the reputation of those schools, and there had been a rise in the number of students who applied for those two schools. But what he was doing in the apothecary school was completely different. If he were to conduct another lecture as he had done outside the library and all of the students withdrew from the apothecary school, a school with only teachers and no students at all would be as good as dead. In a school, the priority was always the student. Could a teacher without any students still be called a teacher? Screw that. It was already bad enough that he had taken all of the grade 6 pills in the pill chamber, but now, he was plotting to create an exodus in the apothecary school as well. That was as good as snapping the very roots that made the apothecary school itself. Lu Feng clutched his chest once more. My heart, my lungs, my kidney, my bladder. Moving as fast as they could, it took only 10 breaths for school head Lu and the vice school heads to arrive at the apothecary auditorium. What they saw before them left them on the brink of mental breakdown. The auditorium could hold more than several dozen thousand people simultaneously but was still usually densely packed with people. However, there was nary a human in sight at this very moment. Other than a cat or two here and there was not a single soul to be seen. Somehow, the emptiness seemed to reek of desolation, as if declaring that the era of glory that the apothecary school had once enjoyed was over. After searching around, school head Lu finally found the teacher in charge of managing the apothecary auditorium, and he rushed up to question him. Wu Laoshe, where are the students? Where are the students? Wu Tian was a 6-star apothecary, one of the elders of the apothecary school. But instead of responding to school head Lu's question, Wu Laoshe continued packing his luggage and said, School head, you came a timely moment. I was intending to head to your office to bid you farewell. Bid me farewell? Lu Feng's figure froze, and anxiety swiftly covered his entire face. Could it be due to that Zhang Xian again? That's right. Wu Tian nodded with a light chuckle. Zhang Shi's lecture has truly opened my eyes, so I acknowledged him as my teacher. From this day forth, I shall no longer be an elder of the apothecary school but an ordinary member of the Xianxian faction. I shall study hard there and aim to achieve a breakthrough as soon as I can. You have acknowledged him as your teacher. The edge of Lu Feng's lips twitched, and he nearly spurted a mouthful of blood. The fact that Wu Tian was a lecturer for several dozen thousand students reflected the extent of his capability and his standing in the apothecary school. Yet, a figure like him had actually acknowledged Zhang Xian as his teacher? You must be freaking kidding me. Not only so, he was even willing to lower himself to become an ordinary member of the Xianxian faction. Tell me, just which screw in your head is loose? The Xianxian faction is only an ordinary student faction. What is an elder like you getting involved in it for? Alright, I will be taking my leave now. After Wu Tian finally finished packing up his items, he turned around and left decisively, devoid of any hesitation or wistfulness for the apothecary school. Wu Laoshe, wait a moment. If you have acknowledged Zhang Xian as your teacher, what about the other teachers? We should have around 40 teachers in the apothecary auditorium. Where did they go? School head Lu shouted after him. You might be an elder, an important existence to the apothecary school, but as long as the other teachers are around, we can surely survive even without you. But, why is the entire area completely empty? Even if the students aren't around, surely the teachers should be. The others were far more decisive than I was. At this moment, they have probably already reported to the Xianxian faction. Alright, I really have to get going now. Otherwise, if I miss a lecture, I will lag behind the others. Wu Tian waved his hands before turning around and walking into the distance. All of them have RR reported to the Xianxian faction. Weakness suddenly assaulted Lu Feng, and he fell onto the floor on his bottom. At this instant, he didn't seem like a man who wielded immense power but a defeated old man. The hell? It is one thing for the students of the apothecary school to leave, but for you to actually take the teachers as your students as well. If that is going to be the case, you might as well demolish my entire apothecary school. Now that I am without students and teachers, what is the point of all of these facilities? Lu Feng and the 4 vice school heads glanced at one another in frenzy. No words could explain what they were feeling at this moment. School head, if you hadn't interfered in Yusu's matter, I think the most that would have happened to our apothecary school is only a few collapsed buildings. But this, what should we do now? Vice school head Zhou sighed deeply. I don't know either. Lu Feng muttered with a blank look on his face. It was just a moment ago that he was doing all he could to prevent Zhang Xian from destroying the facilities of the apothecary school. However, at this instant, he found himself wishing for that to happen instead. The apothecary school was known as the #1 in the Master Teacher Academy due to its overwhelming number of students and excellent teaching staff. It was on this basis that he had become the de facto leader of the 10 great master teachers, the stand-in principal of the academy. But now that the only ones remaining in the academy were him and the vice school heads, his basis of power had vanished. Perhaps, the influence he had might even be beneath that of the Terpsichore school at this very instant. How did this befall him? My heart, my lungs, my kidneys, my bladder, now even the opening to my bladder is hurting. Reluctant to give up just like that, Lu Feng gritted his teeth in determination and stood up. Let's head over to the Xianxian faction. I don't believe that a freshman like him can really win the loyalty of the 300 teachers and 60,000 students of our apothecary school. No matter what, he was a 6-star pinnacle master teacher, a figure who could possibly become a 7-star master teacher in the near future. Would he really lose to a mere freshman? All right. The other vice school heads nodded. The group followed Wu Laosher's figure, and after around 20 minutes later, they finally arrived at the dormitories of the freshmen, which also served as the headquarters of the Xianxian faction. Even from afar, one could see an enormous crowd gathered in the area. Standing guard at the main entrance were 3 mighty-looking grade 4 students, one wielding a spear, one wielding a saber, and the last one barehanded. They were the trio who had lost in the bet against Zhang Xian back then, Ying Qin, Bai Mian, and Yuan Gang. Seated on a stool right behind the entrance gate was a fatty. He held onto a basket in his hands as he shook his plump thighs casually in a crude manner. Upon seeing the group of 5, he immediately stood up and welcomed them. Oh, isn't this our great school head Lu? Are you intending to enter to listen to the lecture? That will be 1 high-tier spirit stone each. We don't discriminate over here, so we charge everyone the same price. What did you say? Lu Feng's cheeks twitched violently, and he nearly erupted on the spot. Upon hearing the argument, Zhen Yang stepped out and clasped his fist. School head Lu, since we are fellow elders of the Master Teacher Academy, I will dispense with the ceremonies and just address you as senior. Senior Lu, my teacher is currently imparting profound knowledge of pill forging, so anyone who wishes to listen to the lecture must pay the entrance fee. This is the rule, as well as a sign of respect for the teaching occupation as well. Uncle's son is only abiding by the rules, so as juniors, I hope that you won't make things difficult for my uncle. Senior. Uncle Chang. Me, a junior. Lu Feng felt as if his entire world had turned dark. The hell? When in the world did my standing become even beneath that of a fatty who only knows how to collect money from others? Knowing that the other party would only use a ton of twisted logic against him even if he were to argue over the matter of seniority, Lu Feng flung his sleeves furiously and changed the topic. We are not here to listen to the lecture. Zhang Xian has hoodwinked the students and staff of our apothecary school, so we are here to see what kind of underhanded means he used to lure them here. If you are here for the lecture, just say so. Stop coming up with such pathetic excuses. But no matter what you say today, you will have to pay the entrance fee to enter. Otherwise, with a shout, I believe that there are many students here who will be more than willing to see the valiant figure of the stand-in principal refusing to pay the entrance fee to a lecture. Sun Chang said as he stretched his back lazily. You. Lu Feng's nails sank deep into his flesh. If the fellow really started shouting then, the reputation which he had built up painstakingly over the years would really dissipate into nothing. Just the shame of it could easily kill him. School head, let's just get in first. Knowing that the school head had already lost his cool, Vice School Head Zhou stepped forward and passed 5 high-tier spirit stones over. Here. That's more like it. Sun Chang's eyes lit up. The members of the Xianxian faction weren't charged for the lectures, and there weren't too many outsiders attending the lecture either. The several dozen thousand students and teachers from the apothecary school had all chosen to join the Xianxian faction. It wasn't easy for him to find someone to profit from, so naturally, he wanted to take a bit more from them. In any case, the apothecary school had already fallen out with the young master, so there was no longer any need to keep up a front before them. Besides, the esteemed head of the apothecary school probably couldn't abandon his dignity and squabble with the uncle of the guest elders of the academy. Well, even if he did, that would be great too. He could make full use of this opportunity to return the favor in the young master's stead. After all, he had seen for himself how arrogant the other party was earlier in the morning. Humph. Seeing Vice School Head Zhou pay the spirit stones, Lu Feng harumphed coldly and walked in, paying no heed to the excited Sun Chang. The living quarters of the freshman was considerably large. Even though it was housing tens of thousands of people, it wasn't cramped at all. Lu Feng had barely taken a few steps through the entrance when he suddenly caught sight of a figure who made him stop in his tracks, and his eyes narrowed in astonishment. Apothecary Lu, why are you here? At the back of the crowd, an old man was currently looking ahead of him with eyes gleaming in excitement. Upon hearing someone call him, the old man turned around. He was no other than one of the most esteemed elders in the apothecary school, Apothecary Lu Yi. Apothecary Lu Yi was barely younger than Yu Su, aged in his 900s. He was one of the oldest elders in the apothecary school, and over the years, he had contributed greatly to it in all aspects. Stuck at a bottleneck, he had spent the past 30 years of his life secluded in his residence to study. He had rarely appeared in public, such that even many of the seniors were unaware of his existence. Even in the annual Grand Apothecary Impartation Symposium, which Apothecary Lu himself had initiated, one of the most prestigious events in the apothecary school, he had been absent. Why was he suddenly here? Shoo, don't speak. Just listen. Marvelous, this is indeed marvelous. To think that even such simple logic can be incorporated into pill forging as well, unbelievable. Waving his hands impatiently, Apothecary Lu Yi ignored School Head Lu and turned his attention back to the stage. Apothecary Lu. Dark lines streaked across the furious Lu Feng's face. He stepped forward to call out to Lu Yi once more, but at that instant, Vice School Head Wei suddenly tugged at his robe and said, "School Head, look at Apothecary Lu's clothes." His clothes? Lu Feng hurriedly turned his glance over, and what he saw left his mouth twitching endlessly. As an elder of the apothecary school, naturally, he was still dressed in the master-teacher robe. However, 2 huge words were weaved on his chest, Xianxian faction. Clearly, even he had joined the student faction as well. It's not only Apothecary Lu. School head, take a look around us, Vice School Head Wei said as he gestured to the surroundings. Lu Feng hurriedly looked around, and he immediately saw a few familiar figures amid the crowd. Apothecary Bai. Wasn't he exploring the world? The last time I invited him to conduct a lecture, his face grew so dark that it seemed as if I was forcing him to commit suicide. Why would he be wearing the robe of the Xianxian faction? Apothecary Ren, his clear flame pill forging technique is currently the most popular class in the apothecary school, and he is one of the teachers who has contributed immensely to the growth of the school as well. He's even on the list of the most respected teachers in the academy. He joined the Xianxian faction as well. That is Apothecary Qiu. I even studied from him at one point. With every figure he saw, school head Lu's face turned a shade darker. By the time he was done, he felt as if the string of sanity in his head was going to snap. There were a few esteemed retired old teachers in the apothecary school whom even he didn't have the authority to mobilize, and yet, here they were, having joined the Xianxian faction voluntarily. To think the influence of a mere student faction would be greater than that of a stand-in principal like him. More importantly, every single of them was completely enraptured by the lecture, pricking up their ears for fear that they might miss a single word. What was this insanity before him? Had the world gone mad? Just as Lu Feng thought that he might really go mad at that very instant, Vice School Head Wei suddenly nudged him and pointed forward. School Head, isn't that Lu Hui? Once again, Lu Feng felt as if his sanity was pushed a step closer to the edge of a cliff. Amidst the crowd, he saw a young man looking at the stage excitedly, as if he was going to meet his idol. Who else could it be other than his direct disciple who had reported Zhang Xian's presence in the apothecary school earlier to him, Lu Hui? When they left for the apothecary pavilion, they had left Lu Hui to take care of the library. When did the other party sneak here, and what was with the Xianxian faction uniform he was wearing? They had only parted a few moments ago. Did he really betray them in such a short period of time? Lu Hui! Lu Feng bellowed furiously. Hearing that voice, Lu Hui noticed that his teacher was there too. He hurriedly squeezed through the crowd to head toward his teacher and bowed deeply. Teacher, I saw that there were many students of our school heading here to listen to the lecture, so I couldn't help but tag along as well. Listening to Zhang Shi's lecture, I thought that it was amazing, so I joined the Xianxian faction as well. Fearing that his teacher would blame him, he hurriedly tried to explain himself. Wonderful! Wonderful! Lu Feng's face grew so red that it seemed as if blood was going to ooze from his skin. Are you going to withdraw from my tutelage too? I will be truly grateful if teacher can grant me that. Lu Hui bowed deeply. Grant your head. Clenching his jaws tightly, Lu Feng really felt like strangling the young man before him at that very instant. It was just a moment ago that the other party had been reporting Zhang Xian's activities to him, but 10 minutes later, the other party suddenly turned on him. Are you really my direct disciple? Unable to take it any longer, Lu Feng turned his gaze to the young man on the stage. Humph, let me see what kind of sorcery that fellow used to make all of you so utterly enamored by him. At this moment, the young man on the stage had already completed his lecture, and he was in the midst of answering questions. Zhang Shi, when I forge the refining yang pill, the pill often turns yellow upon formation. May I know if there is any solution to that? Asked one of the apothecaries amid the crowd. In order to bring out the true essence of the refining yang pill, the apothecary forging the pill must be rich in yang energy as well. Even though there's no problem in your cultivation, a trauma that you suffered when you were younger has resulted in a lingering surge of cold energy within your body, leading to physical frailty. As such, you lack the vitality to forge such a pill. Even if you are able to form the pill, it is unlikely for the pill to harness much medicinal energy. At this point, the young man on the stage glanced at the apothecary in the crowd and asked, if I'm not mistaken, the refining yang pills you forge aren't very effective, are they? The apothecary hurriedly nodded. That's right. The other party's analysis was spot on. Since you have joined the Xianxian faction, you are one of us, and I can't possibly give up on our own members. Alright, I will give you this grade 6 searing yang pill then. With this, you should be able to expel the cold energy in your body easily. Once you do so, you won't face any problems forging the refining yang pill anymore. On top of that, you should be able to make the breakthrough to Chrysalis realm as well. Zhang Xian flicked his finger, and a pill flew toward the apothecary. Seeing that pill, Vice School Head Wei's lips twitched. That pill is mine. He recognized the pill. It was the one he had forged and stored at the pill chamber to be sold. Yes. However, no one paid any heed to Vice School Head Wei's exclamation. The apothecary caught the pill and consumed it immediately. Gugugugu. Not too long later, spiritual energy gushed into him, and with a deafening roar, his aura suddenly surged furiously, soaring into the clouds. Chrysalis realm, reached. Thank you, Zhang Shi. Not expecting that he would be able to achieve a breakthrough on top of resolving an existing trauma he was suffering from, the apothecary immediately kneeled onto the floor and kowtowed out of gratitude. Zhang Shi, I. The next moment, a few more people raised their hands and asked their questions. It was as if the young man had a pair of eyes that could peer through the essence of the world. He could easily tell what kind of constitution everyone had, and he could analyze the root of their problems and answer their questions easily. When he encountered those who seemed to be on the brink of a breakthrough, he would also bestow them with a grade 6 pill without any hesitation. The sound of breakthroughs sounded endlessly beneath the stage. Looking at that sight, Lu Feng and the vice school heads couldn't help but feel their hearts ache. Those grade 6 pills that the young man was giving out freely had been forged painstakingly by them. They had invested a huge amount of time, effort, and money for them, and each of them was worth a fortune. Yet, this fellow was giving them out so casually like that. The more Lu Feng thought about it, the more furious he felt. But he knew that if he were to rush forward to demand those pills be returned to him, he would surely be kicked out by the students and teachers in the crowd, and his reputation would be shattered as well. Let's return. Gritting his teeth, school head Lu turned around and left. Not only did the other party steal away his students and teachers, the other party even made use of his pills to win their hearts and loyalty. How could he possibly keep his calm before this? If he were to watch on, he might just die of anger. But if he were to report this to the master-teacher pavilion, it would just make him appear petty in comparison. After all, the main purpose of pills wasn't to serve as decoration within a chamber but to benefit humanity. Not to mention, he was the head of the apothecary school, and the pills were being distributed to benefit the students of the apothecary school. The other party might be making use of his pills to win the hearts of the populace, but even he had to admit that the other party had distributed them in an ideal manner. Each of those pills were given to the person who needed it the most, thus maximizing their worth. Return? The vice school heads asked blankly. Aren't we going to cause some trouble and coax the students to come back with us? We are going to leave like that, without doing anything. What else do you think we can do? Do you really think it's possible for us to coax the students back with us given the current state of affairs? School head Lu spat through gritted teeth. This. The vice school heads took a look at the crowd around them and subconsciously shook their heads. Judging from the delighted faces among the crowd, they wouldn't even be able to coax the teachers to leave with them, let alone the students. What do we do now? Considering that the teachers and students were all there, the apothecary school was nothing more than an empty shell at this point. What do we do? We shall hold an elder conference. Lu Feng said resolutely. The other party had already captured the hearts of several 10,000 students. Even he didn't dare to provoke him at the moment, so the only thing they could do at the moment was to hold an elder conference when they returned to decide on a countermeasure. Otherwise, if both teachers and students began acting out of their places, what would become of the Master Teacher Academy? Yes. Vice School Head Wei nodded. If this problem wasn't resolved, the Master Teacher Academy could be in for great trouble. What was this? To think that the Master Teacher Academy would face such a serious problem over a single Yusu. If he could, he would really have wanted to chop that fellow into pieces. Let's return. Having come to a decision, the 5 of them turned around and left. After leaving the Xianxian faction, they returned back to the apothecary school. However, watching the previously bustling school become devoid of any life, they couldn't help but feel like crying. When had the apothecary school been in such a pathetic state before? After a moment of silence, Vice School Head Zhou asked, "School Head, why don't you apologize to Zhang Shi? Otherwise, this might really just be the end of our apothecary school." "Apologize to him? Dream on." Lu Feng clenched his teeth furiously. "Wait here for a moment, I'll gather the 10 great master teachers right now for an urgent meeting." "No, I should call Mu Shi over too. If I don't make that law-breaking fellow pay for this, I will abandon my surname Lu." In the tallest tower in the Master Teacher Academy, there was an exquisite room. In that room was a long oval table with 13 seats, and at this very moment, 10 of them were filled up. "School Head Lu, why did you gather us so urgently?" School Head Mo asked. "Could it be that you found clues about Senior Byzantium Helios's whereabouts? That is great news. I have been combing every possible location, but I couldn't find any leads at all." The other school heads chirped in. It had only been 5 to 6 hours since Zhang Xian had stepped into the apothecary school and all of the students and teachers had joined the Xianxian faction. As it had happened too fast, the other school heads hadn't heard of the news yet. "It's not regarding Senior Byzantium Helios but the survival of our Master Teacher Academy. Please wait for a moment, I will speak after Mu Shi arrives." Lu Feng waved his hands. "The survival of our Master Teacher Academy? Could it be that you have found the otherworldly demons who captured Senior Byzantium Helios? If that's the case, a huge battle will be inevitable." Seeing the grim expression on Lu Feng's face and hearing how he had even invited Mu Shi to the meeting, the school heads glanced at one another with grave expressions. On top of enlightening the masses, the Master Teacher Pavilion also shouldered the responsibility of protecting humanity as well. Since the otherworldly demons had gone to the extent of kidnapping Senior Byzantium Helios several days ago, there was no doubt that they were up to something. The moment that they appeared, the Master Teacher Academy would have to devote every single one of its members to stopping them. Jia. In that moment, the door suddenly opened and Mu Shi walked in. Paying respects to Mu Shi. Those in the room hurriedly stood up and clasped their fists. Mu Shi was a 7-star master teacher from the headquarters, and he was tasked with the responsibility of electing the next principal of the Master Teacher Academy and facilitating the handover of power. Thus, he could be considered the superior of the school heads, and none of them dared show him any disrespect. After gesturing for the group to settle down, Mu Yuan asked with a frown, "Lu Feng, why did you summon me so urgently? Did something happen?" "Since everyone is gathered here, I shall begin." Lu Feng nodded. In the current batch of freshmen, there is a student named Zhang Xian. I believe that everyone here should have heard of him. Naturally. With the exception of Mu Yuan, who frowned upon hearing the name, the other school heads nodded. Ever since arriving in the academy, the only time that he had headed out was when he sensed Byzantium Helios Beast's aura. Other than that, he spent nearly all of his time cultivating in his residence. As a result, he hadn't heard of the affairs regarding Zhang Xian before. "Mu Shi, this Zhang Xian is." School head Mo swiftly explained the matter to the other party. Mu Shi's eyes lit up upon hearing the introduction. A master teacher who has comprehended the Eye of Insight. Such a genius has appeared in the Master Teacher Academy. Clearing the records of the blacksmith school and physician school and defeating Yu Su in a life-and-death physician duel meant nothing to him. After all, those were merely supporting occupations. To Mu Shi, what he thought was the most important was one's aptitude as a master teacher itself. A master teacher who had comprehended the Eye of Insight would eventually become an incredible force in the master teacher continent as long as they didn't fall. Not even a single talent of such caliber would appear in the sage clans once in a millennium. Seeing the excited gleam in Mu Shi's eyes, Lu Feng hurriedly interjected. Mu Shi, please allow me to continue first before you make your judgment. I acknowledge the fact that Zhang Xian is indeed an incredible talent, and his appearance would be a blessing to the Master Teacher Academy if he were to use his power for good. However, if he were to use his power for evil instead, he could easily destroy the Master Teacher Academy and the millenniums of history behind it. Use his power for evil? Mu Shi frowned for a moment before nodding. The eye of insight allowed one to see past falsehood and peer into the essence of things. If he were to use it as a tool to guide others down the right path, he would definitely become a valuable aid to humanity, but if he were to use it for evil, that could potentially end in a catastrophe. Even though such matters weren't recorded in the annals, there had indeed been cases where talented master teachers had betrayed humanity. 7,000 years ago, a genius of humble background had succeeded in clearing the 7-star master teacher examination before 30, causing a huge uproar at that moment. Just when everyone had thought that he would become a pillar of humanity, the Master Teacher Pavilion made a misjudgment on a matter and wronged him. Out of rage, that genius hunted down the 37 master teachers who were involved in the matter and slaughtered them. The shock wave of that battle reduced an entire capital extending over a radius of 3,000 li into dust, and over 100 million people had lost their lives. The resulting destruction was not beneath that of an invasion from an army of 10,000 otherworldly demons. Due to the severe aftermath, the Master Teacher Pavilion couldn't cover for him either. Thus, they issued a Master Teacher Pursuit Decree, dispatching high-ranked master teachers to hunt him down. Knowing that a pursuit decree had been released, that genius had fled to the borders and lured over 9,000 6-star master teachers and above into a trap laid by the otherworldly demons at Fubo Ridge. That was truly a gruesome battle. Even though they had succeeded in killing that genius eventually, the Master Teacher Pavilion had also suffered heavy damage in return. 3 8-star master teachers, 134 7-star master teachers, and 7,612 6-star master teachers died in the clash. Eventually, the others named it the Calamity of Fubo. That could be said to be one of the greatest blows the Master Teacher Pavilion had suffered ever since Kong Shi unified the Master Teacher continent. It had taken a long time for the Master Teacher Pavilion to recover from the aftermath of the matter. Due to that matter, the Master Teacher Pavilion had also altered their recruitment rules as well. On top of considering talent, character and morals were also important aspects to be assessed as well. If one had a poor character and was immoral, the more resources the Master Teacher Pavilion devoted into grooming one, the greater the danger humanity would be in. The number of master teachers who had possessed the Eye of Insight was few, even considering the long history of the Master Teacher Pavilion. Each of them were top-notch talents, figures who had rattled the Master Teacher continent in their era. If they were to use their power for justice, humanity could be brought to greater heights. However, if they were to turn to evil, the destruction they could potentially cause was far greater than the calamity of Fubo. Could it be that the Zhang Xian you all spoke of has poor character and is immoral? Mu Shi asked doubtfully. If that was the case, they would really have to tread carefully. Otherwise, they would be bringing a great calamity upon the Master Teacher continent. How is that possible? Hearing those words, school head Mo exclaimed with indignation. In order to allow more students to enroll at the Master Teacher Academy and bolster the forces of humanity, Zhang Shi gave away the 40,000 points he had accumulated to others without asking for anything in return. How could a person with such magnanimity possibly turn to evil? School head Mo, I have to ask of you not to be fooled by appearances. His doings are a clear attempt to rally the freshmen to his side so that he could establish his Xianxian faction. Lu Feng waved his hands. Xianxian faction? Mu Shi asked doubtfully. The Xianxian faction is the student faction established by Zhang Xian. Student factions serve as a tool of cohesion to promote camaraderie among master teachers, allowing them to work together toward improving themselves. As such, the Academy has imposed no restrictions toward them. However, It hasn't been long since that fellow enrolled in the academy, but he is already going around trying to win the hearts of the students to gather accomplices for his misdeeds in the academy. It is clear that he has malicious intentions at heart. Lu Feng said. School head Lu, as a master teacher, you should watch your words. School head Mo's face darkened. What do you mean gather accomplices for his misdeeds? Just because a group of students have gathered together means that they are up to no good? Based on my sources, it appears that Zhang Shi was unaware of the formation of the Xianxian faction. It was under the oppression of the seniors that led to the freshmen banding together, and as the most outstanding student among the freshmen, they nominated Zhang Shi to be their leader. Wei Ronxue's complexion looked awful as well. Given the influence that master teachers wielded, it was imperative that they had to be particularly careful with what they spoke, especially when there was no concrete evidence. Otherwise, an innocent man could possibly be convicted as a result of that. Watch my words. I am already watching my words very carefully. Since it has come to this, I shall not hide it any more then. I will tell you all what happened today, and you can evaluate it for yourselves and see whether I have framed him or not. Harumphing coldly, Lu Feng swiftly told the group what he had gone through that day. You are saying that, all of the teachers and students of the apothecary school have joined the Xianxian faction, and even the old elders are no exception to that? So, the apothecary school is currently nothing more than an empty shell? The room abruptly turned silent. The 10 school heads along with Mu Shi were dumbfounded. Why did it feel as if they were listening to an unbelievable story instead? Indeed. What is most important to a master teacher is their lineage. To make so many people withdraw from the tutelage simultaneously just to join a student faction, there is no doubt that fellow resorted to some underhanded means. Lu Feng's face warped in savagery. If we don't deal with him soon, he could do the same to the other schools as well. Before long, all of the teachers and students in the Master Teacher Academy might soon be his students. If that were to happen, the academy would become nothing more than his plaything. Everyone fell silent. Even school head Mo, school head Zhao, and the others were shocked beyond words. Honestly, they thought that what Zhang Shi had done so far, breaking the records of their schools and destroying their buildings, were already extremely fearsome. Who could have thought that he could even abduct all of the teachers and students from the apothecary school with just a lecture? That was way too terrifying. Wouldn't everyone in the school become his student or grand student if he were to conduct a few more lectures? After a moment of silence, Mu Shi asked grimly, "Have you heard his lecture?" Zhang Xian allows the members of his Xianxian faction to listen to his lecture for free, but for outsiders, they would have to pay an extremely steep entrance fee to enter. I, Zhou Qing, and the other vice school heads of the apothecary school had to pay a high-tier spirit stone each just to enter. Lu Feng harumphed coldly. Naturally, we heard his lecture as well, but his standards can only be said to be subpar. Putting aside the fact that it's complete nonsense, most of what he said was just propaganda to beguile the others into following him. Subpar? Mu Shi frowned. That's right. Also, didn't I mention that he resorted to despicable means to steal the grade 6 pills from our pill chamber? In order to win their support, he gave away the pills to students who were on the verge of a breakthrough just to create a false impression of magnanimity before his followers. Lu Feng recounted his version of events of what he had seen in the Xianxian faction. Giving away those pills to those who require them can be considered a merit, but, if he intended to use it to win the support of others, that would paint a completely different picture of the matter. Mu Shi nodded gravely. The Master Teacher Academy was a ground to groom students to become pillars of support for humanity, so it was surely a joyful event to see the students growing swiftly. However, if Zhang Xian had intended to use those stolen pills as a means to rally others to support him, that could only mean that he lacked righteousness. He must be up to no good. Lu Feng added. Otherwise, how can a man make so many students and teachers be so loyal to him over the course of just a few hours? Mu Shi shook his head. Every cultivator is unique. They have their own expertise and understanding of the world, so the lessons they need are different as well. This is the reason Kong Shi proposed the concept of teaching to the individual. To win the acknowledgement of all of the teachers and students through a single lecture and convince them to join the Xianxian faction is indeed not quite possible. No matter how formidable a master teacher may be, it was impossible for him to win over everyone. After all, humans were unlike money, they were incapable of making everyone love them. Yet, that Zhang Shi actually managed to do it. It couldn't help but introduce doubts that he might have resorted to some other underhanded means instead. Since this matter has happened in your apothecary school, how do you intend to deal with it? Mu Shi turned to Lu Feng and asked. My intentions are simple. I wish for the 10 schools to come to a consensus to evict Zhang Xian out of the Master Teacher Academy, prohibiting him from taking even a single step into its premises. Lu Feng coldly sneered, after which, he shall be stripped of his Master Teacher license, banned from taking any Master Teacher examinations for life. Chapter 821, Quasi-6-Star Apothecary, Evict him from the Master Teacher Academy? Strip him of his Master Teacher license, banning him from taking the Master Teacher examination for life? Everyone was stunned. No, that is definitely out of question. School head Mo bellowed furiously. If that were to happen, putting aside the fact that the Master Teacher Pavilion would lose a precious talent, just the thought of how Zhang Shi's mysterious teacher would respond to it was enough to send shivers down his spine. Perhaps, the Master Teacher Academy might be completely obliterated with a wave of his hand. The higher ranked a Master Teacher was, the more esteemed they became. Even though the Master Teacher Pavilion sought to uphold justice and fairness, it still had practical concerns to consider. Take for example, 100,000 6-star Master Teacher might be a valuable asset to the Master Teacher Pavilion, but their value was still far beneath that of a 9-star Master Teacher. Or taking Kong Shi as example, he was a genius that only appeared once in several dozen thousand years. Putting aside a 9-star Master Teacher, not even 109-star Master Teachers could possibly achieve what he had contributed to humanity in his time. If Mo Gaoyuan was right and Zhang Shi's teacher was an 8-star Master Teacher or above, if the latter were to obliterate the Master Teacher Academy with a slap of his hand, it was likely that the Master Teacher Pavilion wouldn't utter a word of complaint. It was unfair, but this was the kind of privilege that top-tier Master Teachers possessed. After all, there were still many threats that humanity faced where their strength was required. Stripping a Master Teacher's license concerns his entire future. This is not something we can take lightly. Zhao Bingshu spoke up as well. This is especially so when the person in question is a talented individual. If we handle this inappropriately, I fear that what we will lose is not just a genius. We might risk bringing upon ourselves another calamity of Fubo. Hearing those words, everyone fell silent. In truth, the calamity of Fubo could have been avoided. It was due to that genius offending the offspring of a sage clan and having no backers to support him that he was eventually forced into a corner, resulting in the eventual tragedy. Considering that Zhang Xian had already awakened his eye of insight before he had even reached 6-star was testimony to his immense talent. If they were to push him too far and breed malice toward humanity within him, Zhang Xian could possibly choose to side with the otherworldly demons out of fury. With his prowess, that could spell calamity for humanity. Putting everything aside, with his eye of insight, he could possibly become another Kong Shi, but for the otherworldly demons this time around. If so, humanity would be in deep trouble. School head Zhao is right. Mu Shi nodded. Fine, we can put aside the matter of taking away his Master Teacher license. However, we have to evict from the Master Teacher Academy in Hengyuan City. Since he single-handedly brought about the downfall of my apothecary school today, he could easily do the same to the other schools tomorrow. By then, what will become of our Master Teacher Academy? Lu Feng said with gritted teeth. There was no one who had a response to Lu Feng's words. Even school head Mo, Wei Ranxue, and the others who favored Zhang Xian couldn't find any words to respond to that. Honestly speaking, given Zhang Xian's nature, it was very possible that he might wreak havoc in the other schools after he was done with the apothecary school. It was as if he was an ox pulling a plow behind him. It seemed as if he just wouldn't be content until he overturned everything in his path. Furthermore, after what he had done to the apothecary school, there was no one in the academy who could confidently say that they could stop him. After a moment of silence, an old man spoke up. I concur with school head Lu's judgment. This kind of trouble should be chased away as soon as possible. Putting aside Hongyuan City, we shouldn't even allow him to remain within Hongyuan Empire. The head of the Formation Master School, Chen Qingshuan. School head Chen had always maintained close ties with school head Lu, and they often stood on the same ground for most affairs. Another school head nodded in agreement. I concur as well. The head of the painter school, Song Danqing. I disagree. The purpose of those tests in the Master Teacher Academy is for them to be challenged, and there are no rules banning students conducting lectures either. Zhang Shi's doings might be exaggerated, but he hasn't done anything that infringed on the rules. What right do we have to evict him? School head Mo argued. Indeed. His deeds in the apothecary school might seem ridiculous, but as you have said, even a veteran elder like Apothecary Lu chose to join the Xianxian faction to listen to his lectures. This shows that, unlike what you have claimed, there is an extremely high value to his lectures. As master teachers, we should be magnanimous. For someone of Zhang Shi's capability, I think that not only should we not chase him away, we should even keep him in the academy as one of our teachers. Just imagine the heights he could bring our Master Teacher Academy to. Zhao Bingxiu and Wei Ranxue also spoke up. After which, school head Zhong of the Physician School expressed his disapproval of the motion, whereas school head Feng of the Celestial Designer School expressed his approval. After hearing their words, Mu Shi turned to the remaining two in the room. So far, it's 4-4 and 4 against. What about you two? Currently, Lu Feng of the Apothecary School, Chen Qingshuan of the Formation Master School, Song Danqing of the Painter School, and school head Feng of the Celestial School were in support of evicting Zhang Xian from the Master Teacher Academy, whereas school head Mo, school head Zhao, school head Wei, and school head Zhong were against it. Only two more men hadn't expressed their views yet, the head of the Martial Arts School, Su Changqing, and the head of the Demonic Tunist School, Jiang Qingqin. Zhang Shi's students are currently the guest elders of our martial arts school. Since even his students have such a deep insight into battle techniques, nothing needs to be said about him. My view is that we should have Zhang Shi remain. Su Changqing said. What about you? Mu Shi asked. Everyone turned their sights to Jiang Qingqin. It was 5 against 4. If the other party were to vote in favor of Lu Feng, it would lead to a 5 against 5, a draw, and there might be another round of voting in the near future. Otherwise, the motion would be scrapped entirely. I haven't met Zhang Xian for myself, so I don't think I am in a good position to pass judgment on him. Thus, I will refrain from voting, Jiang Qingqin said. Besides, the most important matter we have at hand isn't to deal with a single student of the academy but to find Senior Byzantium Helios. Refrain from voting? That's quite a wise decision. It's still too early to see who is right and who is wrong, so it might be better to back out for the moment. School head Jiang has never been concerned about worldly affairs, so it's not too surprising that he wants to stay out of this matter. The others nodded in response. The head of the Demonist Tunist School, Jiang Qingqin, had always been nonchalant about the world around him, choosing to stay out of troublesome affairs whenever possible. It was within the expectations of the other school heads that he would stay out of the voting. Since the current vote is 5-4, this motion will be scrapped. For the time being, everyone should focus their efforts on finding Byzantium Helios Beast. Announcing the verdict, Mu Shi waved his hands. Just as I have said before, the person who finds Byzantium Helios beast will be the next principal. As for the matter regarding Zhang Xian, I shall leave it to the next principal to decide how to deal with him. Even though Mu Shi was a 7-star master teacher from the headquarters, he was ultimately still an outsider in this matter. It would still be for the best to allow the Master Teacher Academy to resolve the matter among themselves. Otherwise, he could possibly be cast under suspicion of exploiting his authority. Upon hearing the conclusion of the matter, Lu Feng panicked, and he hurriedly turned to Mu Shi with an indignant look on his face. Mu Shi. All right, this matter is already settled. Dismissed. Unwilling to speak any further, Mu Shi waved his hands and walked out of the room. Farewell. Following which, school head Imo, school head Zhao, and the others left as well. Soon, Lu Feng was the only one remaining in the room. Amid the deafening silence, his face warped savagely, and he clenched his fists tightly. Damn it. Furious, he slammed his fist on the table. Fine, I will let you get away for now. However, you'd better pray that you don't slip up. Otherwise, I will make your life a living hell. Lu Feng roared furiously. While Lu Feng was reporting the matter to the 10 great master teachers, Zhang Xian finally finished with his lecture as well. Back then, when he had been standing before the library of the apothecary school, he hadn't been standing in a daze. Rather, he had been using his soul to gather all of the books within into his library of heaven's path. As a 4-star apothecary, he had been able to skip right to the 4-star and 5-star books. As such, it had only taken him an hour to successfully compile the 5-star and 6-star Heaven's Path manual. After studying the manuals, he'd suddenly felt a surge of inspiration, so he'd begun lecturing right outside the library. The content he had spoken of was profound yet easy to understand, interpreting the essence of pill forging directly. The crowd in the surroundings couldn't help but be drawn in by his words. This was also the reason behind the first exodus of the apothecary school to the Xianxian faction. After he was done, Zhang Xian had first gone to the pill chamber, hoping that there might be a grand intermittence pill there. However, to his disappointment, there was nothing of the sort there. Nevertheless, not wanting to make a trip for nothing, he decided to take the grade 6 pills with him so as to return the favor to Lu Feng. Following which, he had headed straight for the ancestral hall, where the pill debate examination was conducted. Just as Vice School Head Wei and the others had seen, he had activated the communication jade screen, not only to clear the pill debate but also to request the pill formula of the grand intermittence pill as well. Without any experience in pill forging, it would have been impossible for Zhang Xian to pass the practical examination. However, if it was just a pill debate, given his thorough understanding and deep insight into pill forging, not even a 7-star apothecary would be a match for him. In the pill debate, he had utterly crushed the 7-star apothecaries on the other end of the screen and received his quasi-6-star apothecary emblem, as well as the pill formula of the grand intermittence pill. Having achieved what he had gone for, Zhang Xian had initially intended to leave. However, recalling how he had taken so many grade 6 pills for nothing, he'd still felt a little guilty. After all, his grudge was with Lu Feng, not with the apothecary school. However, the matter was already done. Thus, he had gone to the apothecary symposium to conduct a lecture as a form of compensation to the apothecary school. Who knew that his lecture would end up awing both students and teachers alike? As a result, the grand sight of countless elders, teachers, and students abandoning the apothecary school for the Xianxian faction had come to be. As for the matters regarding the uniform and the entrance fee, those were Ruohuan Gongzi and Sun Chang's doing. So, this is the key to forging the delight harnessing pill. I finally get it. I feel that with my current comprehension of pill forging, as long as my cultivation reaches the required level, I will surely be able to forge a grade 6 pill. This lecture has truly benefited me greatly. It's as good as 3 years hard work on my part. While Zhang Xian heaved a sigh of relief and departed from the stage, the apothecaries beneath the stage had intoxicated expressions on their faces, still immersed in the lecture they had just heard. Zhang Shi's lecture had been random and abrupt, raising points on the unexpected aspects of pill forging. However, his words eventually tied together perfectly like puzzle pieces to form a profound picture of pill forging, giving the listeners a striking and deep insight into the essence of pill forging. As long as they were to ruminate over his words carefully and decipher them, their proficiency in pill forging would surely rise immensely in the short run. It was just a single lecture, but it was equivalent to several years of their hard work. Genius. He's truly a genius. To think that pill forging can be interpreted from such an angle as well. Apothecary Lu stood beside some of the other old elders of the apothecary school as they discussed Zhang Shi's lecture, and the more they spoke, the more astonished they became. At their age, it was already far too difficult for them to make a breakthrough. If only they had listened to such a lecture 10 years earlier, every single one of them would have been 7-star apothecaries by now. From now on, I am a member of the Xianxian faction. I will never ever return to the apothecary school. Me too. I would rather remain here to listen to Zhang Shi's amazing lectures than rot away in the apothecary school. Perhaps, if we listen to a few more, we might just be able to pass our 7-star apothecary examinations. Just when the few elders were overwhelmed with excitement, they suddenly saw the young man who had just lectured them abruptly walking toward them. Zhang Shi. The elders clasped their fists and bowed politely. There's no need to stand on ceremony. I am here to request something of you all, Zhang Xian said. Feel free to speak, Zhang Shi. As long as it's within the means of old bones like us, we will surely give it our best. Even though they weren't students of the academy, they had become completely impressed by the young man before them after hearing the lecture as well. Thank you, but it's actually not that much. I just need you all to collaborate together and forge a pill for me. Zhang Xian revealed his motive. Collaborate together? The group was stunned. Despite the profound understanding of pill forging that the young man before him had, he still needed their help. That's right. I wish to forge the Grand Intermittence Pill. Zhang Xian said. Grand Intermittence Pill. A Grade 7 pill. Apothecary Lu exclaimed in shock. Chapter 822, Phoenix Timber Core Grand Intermittence Pill was extremely well known for its miraculous ability in allowing one to regrow even severed limbs. But naturally, it was an extremely difficult pill to forge as well. Even among grade 7 pills, it could be considered one of the more advanced ones. It would be difficult for even an average 7-star apothecary to forge it, so how could they possibly succeed? For all upper 9 paths occupations, the difference between each rank became exponentially larger the higher one climbed. Even though it was only a single rank of difference between 6-star and 7-star, it was like the difference between a saint and a transcendent mortal. There was an unbreachable gap between the two. In fact, even within the rank itself, there was a vast difference in the capability between low tier and pinnacle. In other words, even though they were all 6-star pinnacle apothecaries, just a toe away from achieving a breakthrough to 7-star, it was still utterly impossible for them to forge the Grand Intermittence Pill, which only 7-star pinnacle apothecaries were capable of forging. With a bitter smile, Apothecary Lu shook his head. I'm afraid that we might not be of much help here. I know that it's difficult, that's why I need you to work together with one another, Zhang Xian replied. Work together? But we have never worked together before, it won't be easy to do so. The group shook their heads. Pill forging wasn't like fighting a battle, where each cultivator just had to cover for one another. Every single apothecary had their own unique pill forging technique and style. It was more likely than not that if 2 apothecaries tried to work on the same cauldron, a major error would occur somewhere. This could easily lead to all of the medicinal herbs being ruined, or in the worst-case scenario, a cauldron explosion even. That was not to say that it was completely impossible for apothecaries to work together on the same cauldron. There were such cases in the world, but most of them were students who had been training to work with each other from the very start, and after several dozen years of collaboration, they gained the ability to understand one another by the slightest gesture or gaze, allowing them to synergize with each other perfectly. But on the other hand, Apothecary Lu and the others had already tread on their own path for several centuries now, and they had their own unique forging style tailored to their own needs. If they were to forcefully work with one another, it was one thing for them to fail in forming the pill, but in the worst-case scenario, they might even end up blowing away the entire Master-Teacher Academy. As one of the more advanced grade 7 pills, the medicinal energy contained within a grand intermittence pill was comparable to the might of a Saint 4 Dan expert. If a mistake were to occur, with their cultivation of Saint 1 Dan, it would be impossible for them to suppress the explosion. There's no need to worry about that. I have a few pill forging techniques here that are suited for just that, so I hope that you can familiarize yourselves with them quickly. As for the collaboration, as long as you listen to my instructions strictly, there won't be any problem with it. Zhang Xian said as he whipped out a few books and passed them over. These were the pill forging techniques he had deduced that he would require for the forging of the grand intermittence pill. Pill forging techniques. Apothecary Lu and the others grabbed the books given to them and began browsing through them. Each of them took a different book each, and the content of each book was different as well. Misty Rain Pill Forging Art. It didn't take too long for Apothecary Lu to finish browsing through his book, and by the time he was done, his hands were trembling intensely. The Misty Rain pill forging art was centered around stability, taming whatever destructive force it encountered while silently nourishing the pill. The technique was extremely profound and intricate. Despite Apothecary Lu's many years of experience, he had never seen anything like it before. Without a doubt, if he were to successfully master this technique, his proficiency of pill forging would soar once again. By then, as long as his cultivation hit the requirement, he was confident that he would clear the 7-star apothecary examination easily. But what had truly left him astounded was that, the Misty Rain pill forging art complemented his cultivation technique perfectly. If he were to master this technique, even his fighting prowess would be enhanced as well. This is truly a good pill forging technique. It complements my spirit turtle Jinchi splendidly. The pill forging technique in the book supplements my cultivation technique impeccably too. After reading their own books, the eyes of the others were also glowing, and they couldn't help but exclaim in excitement. Hearing those words, Apothecary Lu took the books of his other friends and browsed through them swiftly as well, and his eyes couldn't help but widen. He realized that the pill forging techniques listed in the books were a perfect fit for their individual cultivation techniques and constitutions, such that he couldn't pick a single flaw from it. In other words, Zhang Shi had designed these pill forging techniques specifically for them. Otherwise, considering how each cultivator had his own unique cultivation technique and constitution, how could there be such a coincidence that all of them would have a pill forging technique that was a perfect fit for them? But to tailor a pill forging technique to the needs of another. Just how deep of an understanding must one have of pill forging to be able to do so? Even the most capable 7-star pinnacle apothecaries were incapable of such. This. Naturally, since Apothecary Lu had noticed this much, the others couldn't possibly remain oblivious to it. With eyes widened with respect and awe, they gazed deeply at the young man before them. They had thought that the other party was amazing when they were listening to his lecture, but at this moment, what they had was deep reverence for him. After recovering from the shock, Apothecary Lu asked, "Has Zhang Shi prepared the required medicinal herbs yet?" "According to what I know, the main medicinal herb of the Grand Intermittence pill, the Grand Intermittence grass, is a rare saint herb. As the saying goes, even the most capable of cook can't cook without ingredients. The medicinal ingredients of grade 7 pills might not be too difficult to find within a conferred empire, but in Hongyuan City, that would be no easy feat. This was especially so for the Grand Intermittence grass. Putting aside how it was rare and impossible to be cultivated, its natural habitat also tended to be regions plagued with poisonous worms. Even St. Dan experts would be troubled to procure it. I have already applied for the required medicinal herbs from the headquarters, Zhang Xian replied. After obtaining the pill formula of the Grand Intermittence pill, he swiftly looked through the herbs required and noted that the main ingredient, Grand Intermittence grass, was hard to obtain in Hongyuan City. Thus, he applied for it from the headquarters. You applied for the medicinal herb from the headquarters? Apothecary Lu and the other apothecaries glanced at one another, astounded. But given the steep price of the Grand Intermittence grass, will the headquarters really be willing to give it to you? Applying and purchasing from the headquarters were two separate matters. Applying was equivalent to asking for a subsidy from the headquarters. Should the headquarters accept the application, they would give the medicinal herb to the applicant without charging anything. On the other hand, purchasing would require the purchaser to pay a certain price in exchange for the medicinal herb. But the Grand Intermittence grass was a rare and valuable saint herb. Even if one were to purchase it from the headquarters, it would cost at least several hundred or even 1,000 high-tier spirit stones. To apply for it, how could the headquarters possibly accept the application? If it was that simple, the Apothecary Guild headquarters would have already closed down from the sheer expenses incurred from apothecaries applying for medicinal herbs. Zhang Xian pondered for a moment before replying. I happened to solve the problems of one of their apothecaries, and the other party promised to help me settle this matter, so I don't think there will be any trouble. The communication wall could only transfer written information, whereas the jade communication screen allowed one to transmit and view visual information as well. Back then, when Zhang Xian had been taking his 6-star apothecary examination, one of the apothecaries on the other end had sent a video of someone forging pills, and Zhang Xian had helped the other party analyze and resolve a few problems in his forging method, thus winning the other party's respect. In light of that, the other party had offered to help him apply for the Grand Intermittence grass. But back then, the other party had spoken of it lightly as if it was nothing. Could the other party have been lying to him? Apothecary Lu frowned slightly upon hearing Zhang Xian's story, and he said, even for the apothecaries of the headquarters, it would still be difficult for them to apply for medicinal herbs without some connections. Do you know of the name of the apothecary you spoke to? If I recall correctly, I think his name is Wu Huayu. Back then, of the 10 apothecaries projected in the jade communication wall, he was the one who was the rowdiest. Zhang Xian replied. However, before Zhang Xian could finish his words, the lower jaws of the elders before him abruptly fell to the ground, and they began shaking in fear. What's wrong? Seeing the bizarre state of the elders before him, Zhang Xian frowned. Zhang Shi, do you have any idea who Wu Huayu is? Apothecary Lu asked with quivering lips. How could I possibly know? But considering how dim-witted he was and the ton of nonsense that flew out of his mouth, he is probably no one important. Why, do you know each other? Zhang Xian asked. Dim-witted? Cough cough. Apothecary Lu nearly choked. Seeing that the man before him was truly ignorant of it, he could only shake his head with a bitter smile. Wu Huayu is the head of the Qingyuan Conferred Empire Apothecary Guild, a 7-star pinnacle apothecary. The others also hurriedly nodded, as if fearing that Zhang Xian wouldn't believe it. It was one thing for you not to recognize guild leader Wu, but to say that he is dim-witted. That is the number of apothecary of Qingyuan Empire, and yet you speak as if he is nothing at all. More importantly, you even helped to solve his problems. Just what kind of monster is standing before me? Guild leader. You are saying that person is the leader of the Apothecary Guild. I see. Zhang Xian was stunned for an instant before he slowly nodded. Since he's the guild leader, there shouldn't be any problem with obtaining the Grand Intermittence pill. As for the other ingredients, it shouldn't be any trouble obtaining them in Hongyuan City. Here is the list of ingredients that I will need. Zhang Xian said as he passed a piece of paper over. As apothecaries, you have more connections in Hongyuan City than I do. Thus, I will have to trouble you to help me source them. If you see any of these herbs, do help me purchase them, I will repay you later. If I don't have enough money, I will trade grade 6 pills for them. Since Zhang Xian was troubling them to find the medicinal herbs for him, he couldn't possibly have them pay out of their pocket for it too. It just so happened that he had quite a few grade 6 pills remaining in his hands, so he could use them to trade for the medicinal herbs. The medicinal herbs on this list are quite affordable. Apothecary Lu took the paper, browsed through the list of ingredients, and remarked, I think we might be able to gather all of these medicinal herbs through our own private stashes, so there's no need for Zhang Shi to pay. You may consider this our way of repaying you for your impartation of knowledge and the pill forging techniques. As old elders of the apothecary school, they had their own stashes of medicinal herbs that they could use whenever they needed. While they might not have extremely valuable saint herbs like the grand intermittence grass in their possession, the collections they had accumulated over the years were still rather impressive. Besides, as 6-star pinnacle apothecaries and elders of the Master Teacher Academy, it would be embarrassing if they were to only receive from the other party and not give back to him. It was just a bunch of medicinal herbs, they each had plenty of those in their stash. It was nothing much for them to just give them away. Zhang Xian's eyes lit up, and he clasped his fist and thanked them. I will be thanking you in advance then. Zhang Shi, allow me to finish first. Apothecary Lu waved his hands. We are able to gather most of the medicinal herbs required, but there is one which you might have to source for yourself. Which one? Zhang Xian asked. It's the last medicinal herb on the list, the phoenix timber core. Apothecary Lu replied. Phoenix timber core. Zhang Xian frowned. You aren't able to find this? The phoenix timber marrow was not a saint herb, spirit herb, or even a medicinal herb. Zhang Xian had thought that it would be the easiest one to find on the list, which was also the reason he had listed it at the very bottom, but who would have thought that the old elders would tell him that they were unable to obtain it? The phoenix timber core is the very foundation of the phoenix timber tree. It has the medical properties of facilitating hemostasis and the recovery of wounds. Compared to the other medicinal herbs, it is indeed not very valuable. However, the problem lies in its rarity. None of us have it in our stash, and it is unlikely that we will be able to find it in the apothecary school and physician school either. Apothecary Lu said. If even the apothecary school and physician school don't have them, then where am I to look for it? Zhang Xian frowned. The apothecary school and physician school could be said to have the largest collection of medicinal herbs in Hongyuan City. If the phoenix timber core couldn't even be found in those two places, it was highly likely that it would be impossible to find it anywhere else in Hongyuan City. Zhang Shi, calm down. While we don't have the means to procure the phoenix timber core, we do know where you can find it. If Zhang Shi is able to convince that fellow, you might just be able to obtain it. Apothecary Lu said. Oh. Zhang Xian's eyebrows shot up. Please enlighten me. The main use of the phoenix timber core is not to serve as a medicine but to craft zither. If my memory fails me not, I believe there is a phoenix timber tree in the Demonist Tunist school. If you can get to school head Jiang Qingqin, you might just be able to obtain it. Apothecary Lu said. Chapter 823, Attainment of 6 Cranes, Demonic Tunist School. Zhang Xian asked doubtfully. That's right. Once the phoenix timber tree matures, one can procure its wood and soak it in a flowing river for 49 days. The resulting wood is an ideal material for crafting the 7-string zither. This instrument has an extremely beautiful sound that reverberates deep within one's soul, making it a treasure which all demonic Tunists hope to obtain. Apothecary Lu explained. The current phoenix timber tree in the demonic Tunist school was planted personally by school head Jiang Qingqin 500 years ago. Over the many years, it has been nourished by the rich spiritual energy in the academy, thus making it exceptional material. If we can acquire its core to use in forging the grand intermittence pill, it will definitely augment the medical properties of the formed pill. Hearing those words, Zhang Xian nodded. He didn't have much knowledge of the demonic tunist occupation, so he didn't know there was such a use to the phoenix timber core too. Alright. I will find a way to purchase the phoenix timber core from the demonic tunist school. Knowing that he could acquire the material inside the Master Teacher Academy, Zhang Xian heaved a sigh of relief. Purchase. Apothecary School. Lu shook his head. School head Jiang has always viewed worldly possessions with nonchalance, so I fear that it won't be that easy. View worldly possessions with nonchalance? Zhang Xian frowned. In any case, we don't have any ties with school head Jiang, and our words also don't have enough weight to sway him, so I'm afraid that we won't be able to help you on this matter. Zhang Shi, you will have to convince him yourself. For the time being, I think that you should send him a visiting scroll to indicate that you will be visiting. This will make you seem sincerer, and it might boost your chances of success. Visiting scroll, it is similar to a letter which you send in advance to your visit or right before your visit to indicate your identity so as to give the other party a heads up. It is considered to be polite and respectful. At which point, Apothecary Lu suddenly laughed dryly and said, if Zhang Shi were to do what you did to the apothecary school, I fear that it might have the opposite effect. School head Jiang Qingqin was a reticent person, and he usually avoided interacting with others wherever possible. Even though they were the old elders of the apothecary school, they hadn't really had much contact with him. But nevertheless, based on the rumors, they could still fathom a guess on the other party's temperament, and it didn't seem like he was an easy person to get along with. If they were to regard the other party respectfully, they might still stand a chance. But if Zhang Shi were to act as he usually did, destroying everything in his path. Don't worry, I am not a reckless person. Zhang Xian reassured them. However, Apothecary Lu and the others fell speechless after hearing those words instead. If it wasn't out of recklessness that you practically crippled the physician school and apothecary school, wouldn't the Master Teacher Academy collapse if you were to get reckless? Seeing that there was still some time before the agreed time with Luo Ruoxin, Zhang Xian instructed, Sun Chang, make some preparations. We will be heading to the demonic tunist school now. Yes. Sun Chang hurriedly rushed off to prepare. Soon, after confirming the direction, the master and butler headed for the demonic tunist school. In the demonic tunist school, beneath a lush phoenix timber tree, an elder was stroking his zither calmly. The melodious sound of the zither drifted lightly in the air, and 6 divine cranes began dancing upon hearing the music. They flew around the courtyard joyously, calling out in excitement. A long time later, the zither music finally came to an end. The elder shook his head and sighed. I'm still a bit off. Another elder not too far away stroked his beard and said, School head, that's because your expectations are too high. Choir of 6 cranes, that is already a level that countless dream of. In order to reach 7 cranes, that requires one to possess skills on par with a 7-star demonic tunist. The old man who had been playing just a moment ago was school head Jiang Qingqin, and the other person with him was vice school head Ning Hai. These days, I can feel that a breakthrough is imminent, but I just can't find the impetus to do so. Jiang Qingqin shook his head. Not too far away, the flying cranes landed back on the ground, returning back to their flock of around a dozen cranes. Demonic tunist, just like the other occupations, could be divided into differing levels of capability. In this case, the more cranes that one was able to allure into dancing merrily in the sky, the greater one's capability as a demonic tunist was. Jiang Qingqin's feat of inducing 6 cranes to dance harmoniously to his zither could already be considered an incredible achievement. The music of the zither originates from the heart. There's no point getting anxious over it. Perhaps, if you could empty your mind, you might achieve a breakthrough instead. Vice School Head Ning chuckled. That's true, but with so many things going on the academy recently, it's not easy for me to empty my mind. Jiang Qingqin sighed. He would have also loved to stay out of worldly affairs and achieve a transcendent state of mind, but as the head of the demonic Tunnist school, he had many affairs that he had to tend to each day. It was easier said than done. Furthermore, many troubles seemed to have cropped up within the Master-Teacher Academy one after another in recent days. Bearing heavy responsibilities on his shoulders, he couldn't just turn his head away at such a time. Indeed. Vice School Head Ning sighed as he placed his fingers on the zither before him. Being a school head sure is tough. Even if you offered to hand it over to me for free, I still wouldn't take it. What I want is to roam the world, living joyously and carefree with a zither in hand, unburdened by worldly affairs. You. Seeing his old friend's state, Jiang Qingqin chuckled and shook his head. In truth, Vice School Head Ning was nowhere beneath him in terms of his capability, and if he wished to, he was more than qualified to become the school head. However, it was just that he was unwilling to take on the responsibility. At that moment, a student suddenly rushed into the courtyard. Teacher, Zhang Xian seeks an audience. As the student spoke, he passed a visiting scroll over. Zhang Xian. Jiang Qingqin was taken aback for an instant before the corners of his mouth twitched. What is he doing here? I don't think I have any conflict with him. What's wrong? Is there something special about that Zhang Xian? Seeing Jiang Qingqin's state, Vice School Head Ning couldn't help but be puzzled. Even though Ning Hai was the vice head of the demonic Tunnist school, it was more or less only in name. He rarely interfered in the affairs of the school, spending his days playing his zither, immersed in music. Thus, he was unaware of the various affairs surrounding Zhang Xian. Special is an understatement, he is like the god of destruction. Wherever he goes, unrest follows. Jiang Qingqin swiftly brought his old friend up to speed on the matter. To think that there would be such a formidable genius in our Master-Teacher Academy. Vice School Head Ning exclaimed in astonishment. He had heard of master teachers who possessed a particular talent for a single occupation or two, but never had he seen a 20-year-old freshman overpowering multiple schools in the academy single-handedly. This was unimaginable. But our demonic Tunnist school has no grudge with him. What is he doing here? Jiang Qingqin's questioned with an awful complexion. He was usually extremely easygoing, rarely allowing anything to get to him. But Lu Feng had described the other party as if he was a monster with 6 arms, so Jiang Qingqin couldn't help but feel a little apprehensive at the other party's arrival. To visit the demonic Tunnist school for no apparent reason, it couldn't be that he intended to tear down the demonic Tunnist school. Based on what you said, we can't discount that possibility. Vice School Head Ning frowned as well. Since that's the case, tell him that I am currently in seclusion, so I can't meet him, Jiang Qingqin instructed the student. That won't work. If that fellow resorts to forceful measures after being turned down by you, the demonic Tunnist school might just end up like the other schools. Vice School Head Ning hurriedly interjected. What should we do then? Jiang Qingqin frowned. Honestly speaking, that Zhang Xian was truly a star of calamity. Misfortune fell on whoever was around him. If he had a choice, he would definitely stay as far out of that fellow's path as he could. Why don't we invite him in for the time being? Since he has delivered his visiting scroll instead of barging in, I think that there are still grounds for negotiation, Vice School Head Ning said. Furthermore, if he is as formidable as you have said, and he has a deep understanding of demonic tunes as well, we could have him offer some pointers to our students, and perhaps, that might lead to a significant rise in the strength of our demonic Tunnist school. This. Hearing those words, Jiang Qingqin's eyes lit up as well. Indeed. This encounter can be considered an opportunity for our demonic Tunnist school too. Thus, Jiang Qingqin turned to the student and instructed, all right, invite him in. Even though Zhang Xian had a fearsome record of destruction behind him, considering the nature of the demonic tunist examination, it was unlikely that he could do anything to the school. Besides, if the other party possessed true capability, he could even apply for the 6-star demonic tunist emblem for the other party directly. Yes. The student nodded before leaving quickly. Not too long later, he returned with Zhang Xian and a plump man. Zhang Xian stepped forward and clasped his fist. Zhang Xian pays respect to school head Jiang and vice school head Ning. On the way here, he had already asked the student about the identities of the duo standing beneath the phoenix timber tree. There's no need to stand on ceremony with us, Zhang Shi. I have heard much about your affairs. May I ask the reason behind your visit? Our small demonic tunist school is unable to take any setbacks, so I have to ask of you to have mercy on us, Jiang Qingqin said. School head Jiang, what are you talking about? Not expecting the other party to actually take precautions against him right from the start, Zhang Xian was stunned for a moment. He quickly clasped his fist and replied, actually, the reason I am here today is because I have something to request of you. Oh. Jiang Qingqin and Ning Hai exchanged doubtful glances, and after a brief moment of silence, Jiang Qingqin turned to Zhang Xian and said grimly, as long as you don't destroy the demonic tunist school, challenge the trials here, and have my students join your Xian faction. I will definitely do whatever I can for you. Cough cough. Zhang Xian choked on his saliva. What the heck is this? It was not like I intended to cause all that damage. All I did was challenge those trials fair and square, and yet, everyone treats me as if I am bent on destroying everything I lay my eyes on. I am not such a person. But as frustrated as Zhang Xian was, he didn't forget the aim of his visit. The reason I am here is to ask school head Jiang to spare me some phoenix timber core. Phoenix timber core? Impossible. I can't give you that. Hearing those words, school head Jiang immediately waved his hands and rejected him decisively. When he'd seen how amicable the other party's attitude was, he had thought that the other party might not be as bad as the rumors had made him out to be. But who knew that the other party would ask for his phoenix timber core? There was no one in the Master Teacher Academy who didn't know that the phoenix timber tree was his most prized possession. To actually ask me to give it to you. That's as good as taking my life. Why don't you just kill me instead? This. I am willing to pay a premium price on it. Zhang Xian offered without any hesitation, knowing the rarity of the phoenix timber core. I won't sell it to you even if you are willing to pay a premium on it. School head Jiang shook his head. All right then. Seeing how determined the other party was, Zhang Xian could only sigh helplessly. Then, may I know where the library of the demonic tunist school is and where I can take the demonic tunist examination? I would like to take the demonic tunist examination while I am here. You want to take the demonic tunist examination? Recalling the huge calamity that had resulted from the young man before him taking the examinations of the other occupations, school head Jiang's lips twitched, and he hurriedly waved his hands. No way. No way. Is school head Jiang prohibiting me from taking the demonic tunist examination? Zhang Xian asked doubtfully. That's not it. Jiang Qingqin's complexion looks extremely awful, but he had no idea how he could speak about the matter. In truth, he had no right to stop the other party if the other party wanted to take the examination. After all, the students had their own freedom to take the examinations as they liked. It was utterly ridiculous for him to prevent a genius from taking the demonic tunist examination just because of his fear. If so, he would be unqualified to be a master teacher as well. Seeing that Jiang Qingqin was in a dilemma, Ning Hai discreetly sent a telepathic message to him. School head, aren't you trying to achieve a breakthrough beyond the attainment of 6 cranes? Considering the incredible reputation of that fellow, why don't you have him offer you some pointers on your demonic tunes? If he is able to help you reach attainment of 7 cranes, there is no harm giving him some phoenix timber core. But if he fails, you will have a reason to turn him down and ask him to leave. This. Hearing those words, Jiang Qingqin's eyes suddenly lit up in enlightenment. Indeed. Since the other party was able to make all of the teachers and students of the apothecary school willingly acknowledge him as his teacher, and even Wei Ranxue was completely awed by his teaching, perhaps he might be able to do the same in demonic tunes as well. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.